I think Tevez going to Juventus, what a coup that was for me. I mean,
on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around.
Either he's really blind or he's fixing the match. I can't see it any other way.
it is an upset. You would expect Man United to go and win there.
Over $1 billion was paid in transfer fees between the clubs in Europe.
And Bayern Munich are going to be favourites for me against anybody at home in the world. The 03-04 season, actually, Olympiacos have won 8 of the last 10 domestic league campaigns, so there is only really one team in Greece, which we kind of already knew.
Because things have been pretty much decided, just as a quick glance before we go through the table, PSG is going to lock up this thing with 1 more point. Monaco is solidly in second place. Lille is going to be in that Champions League qualifier position, 7 points ahead of Saint Etienne. If you're a serious talent, you're going back and you're playing for Santos. You're going back to play for, like in Argentina, for River Plate or Boca Juniors, or you're going to Europe.
He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly.
I am your host, Joe Usello. My co-host, Rob Rojas. My trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 44 of Low Limit Football on Low Limit Poker Radio. I am your host, Joe Usello, and excited to be here tonight again because we have a great guest coming on in the name of Ian Joy from BeIN Sport. I think our most recent professional footballer, if you count Ray Hudson as well, but our most recent professional footballer having played in both England and in MLS. So he's going to be joining us tonight after his duties on The Locker Room, which he's on TV right now, which is great. But before I go any further, let me introduce my co-host, Ben the Machine. Ben, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I'm good, Joe. Good week's worth of football, and hopefully another great show and another great guest.
Definitely. We were jam-packed this week with league coverage and league matches, midweek matches from last week, weekend matches, exciting matches, and we're going into a week of Champions League and Europa League. MLS is winding down to where we're getting into the playoff crunch that we're going to talk about in a little while. And we've got some big matches coming up both midweek this week and in the leagues on the weekend, Ben. So we're going to have a ton to talk about tonight. And then, obviously, closing it all out with Ian Joy as soon as he gets off my television here and gets on the audio with us. I think he's going to be great to talk to as well. I don't know, Ben, if you've ever had the pleasure of watching him on television at all, but very, very exciting guy, very energetic. He was co-host of Wow Time on BeIN Sport with George DeMatteis, one of our previous guests. They did that show last year, which was basically a goal review show, is where they just basically showed the best goals, some of the best bloopers. He did that. He does color. He did color for our match of the week this week, which in France, which was Marseille Saint Etienne. So, he's going to have a lot to talk about. When I messaged him this week, I asked him if there were any topics that he did want to talk about, anything that he didn't want to talk about. He said no, he'll talk about anything and everything. So, hopefully we don't keep him too late. But I think he'll give us a little bit of everything, Ben. So, what do you think about tonight's show?
It looks good. Another good guest, and like you said, if he's open, then we can explore some subjects and hopefully have some fun and put another decent guest forward for the listeners to listen to.
I agree. And tonight, before we go any further, Ben, you and I are doing this old school because Rob couldn't be here with us tonight. He is first of all, he's got his own match. Like we said, he's the young one of the three of us. And so he's got his own match to play tonight, and he's got some college preparatory thing going on. So he's got a lot on his plate for tonight. So we gave him the night off, I guess, right, Ben?
Yeah, we went proper old school, didn't we? Obviously, we've all got each other's back, so every now and again it's going to be a two-man show, but for the most part we're a three-man team, and we get the job done every week.
That's right. Before I move any further, Sir Bob is joining us in the chat tonight as Ryan Tunnicliffe. And I'm sure, Ben, you'll be able to explain Ryan Tunnicliffe to me because it's just not ringing a bell. For BeIN Sport, I'm not sure what provider you have up north, Sir Bob. I do know that it is on DirecTV. For me, it's on channel 620 for DirecTV, so I don't know if you have DirecTV or not. But I do know BeIN Sport is broadcast up in Canada as well as the United States. They also stream, so definitely if you get a chance to put on BeIN Sport, for me, Ben, I mean, we got coverage. We get some soccer coverage or football coverage. I'm sorry, Sir Bob. We get football coverage here from ESPN. We get some football coverage from NBC Sports with the coverage of the Premier League. We get some Champions League stuff from Fox. But the guys at BeIN really do it great. The only league that I'm missing of the top 5 every week is the German Bundesliga, because that's on Goal TV. But BeIN Sport has Ligue 1, La Liga, and Serie A for me, and then I get my Premier League stuff from NBC Sports. So BeIN Sport, I spend all of, if not most, if not all of my time watching BeIN Sport. So he has, apparently, Sir Bob has access to 12 BeIN channels. And I only know of the BeIN Sport USA. I know of BeIN Sport in Espanol, and then they also do a live streaming one. But the locker room, I'm surprised you don't see the locker room on there. That would be on their BeIN Sport USA feed, I guess, if that's the best way to describe it. So hopefully you can get that hooked up and looked at. And again, Sir Bob's going to keep an eye on the transfer rate for us in the chat to let us know if we're totally bowing out on him with the audio uplink. So. And I did not know BeIN Sport had 12 high-definition channels because, like I said, I only get the one in high def. But, Ben, one thing they're talking about right now, because I always keep my eye on the screen, they're talking about Mario Balotelli. And they're saying that he's not so super. It's something I'm going to talk about with you when we get to the Premier League. So let's I'll tell you what, let's kick it off. Let's head over to La Liga. Let's do our thing in La Liga like we did old school. Going through the match of the week, and and for Sir Bob, we're changing the format a little bit. Normally, we would rip through the scores and then talk about our preview match from last week, but this time we're going to recap that match, then do the scores, and then do our new preview. So, Ben, take us away.
We can. I'll explain the Ryan Tunnicliffe thing, Joe, in the Blackburn corner. But
okay.
Kudos for Bob for bringing a little bit of extra Blackburn to the show, because can never be too bad a thing. Like Joe said, we're going to go and start La Liga. We're going to review the last prediction from last week, which was Rob's La Liga, but I'm taking over for this week, of course. The featured match from last week was Villarreal, Real Madrid at Villarreal, and Rob predicted 2-1 to Real Madrid. The actual score was 2-0 to Real Madrid. First half goals from Luka Modric and Cristiano Ronaldo saw Real Madrid overcome, which is quite a tricky trip to Villarreal, really. But 2-0, clean sheet, and marched on to their first straight win. And they definitely needed that with the start that Barcelona have had. Like I said, Luka Modric broke the deadlock just over the half hour outside the area. Decent goal. It was a great finish. And then Ronaldo doubled the lead just before the break. But ironically, the thing that maybe was the most standout moment for me was straight after... just moments before the Ronaldo goal, there was actually a plane flown over the Villarreal stadium that obviously, well, I'm assuming Manchester United fans paid for, with a big banner behind that said "Come on, Ronaldo," which a little bit interesting. I know it's kind of been a little bit in the grapevine there, but what Man United fans won't do, they're just going to pay for a plane to go to the Villarreal stadium. But yeah, anyway, I thought that was something a bit interesting. But not taking into account Villarreal from this game, I mean, 2-0 was, probably about the right result, but I mean, Villarreal didn't just come and lay down. They did have the chances, and the one that stood out for me just before half-time, a great chance 6 yards out, blasted over, which really should have done better, should have scored there, and they should have been going in at 2-1, and it just becomes a bit of a different team talk then, and maybe it changes the game a little bit. But like I said, not really a vintage performance from Real Madrid. Possession was equal, 50-50. 19 shots for Villarreal and 5 on target, and 11 for Real Madrid, only 3 on target. So you can kind of see it was a close game, and this Real Madrid team obviously not at their best. And I think from this game you can kind of see this Villarreal team. I think they're going to cause some problems for some teams this year, especially at home. Mm-hmm. Go on to the scores from the week before we go to do this week's featured match. We had midweek games as well as weekend games, so I'm going to try and run through them. On Tuesday the 23rd, we had Celta Vigo beating Deportivo La Coruña 2-1. Real Madrid beating Elche 5-1. Then we had Sevilla beating Real Sociedad 1-0. Malaga drawing 0-0 with Barcelona, surprisingly. Granada losing 1-0 at home to Levante. Rayo Vallecano beating Atletico Bilbao 2-1. Eibar drawing 1-1 with Villarreal. Atletico Madrid beating Almeria. And then we had 2 games on the Thursday. Valencia beating Cordoba 3-0. Espanyol beating Getafe 2-0. And then we had a game on the Friday. Elche losing 1-0 at home to Celta Vigo. And then we got onto the weekend. There was actually games every day since we've stopped the show, so I'm going to try to keep going for them as quick as I can. Onto the Saturday, the 27th, just gone. Levante losing 2-0 at home to Rayo Vallecano. Atletico Bilbao drawing 0-0 at home to Eibar. Atletico Madrid destroying Sevilla 4-0, really a surprise result there. Barcelona 6-0 against Granada with their amazing start. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second. Villarreal losing 2-0 at home to Real Madrid. And then on to the Sunday, Cordoba drawing 0-0 with Espanyol. Real Sociedad drawing 1-1 with Valencia. Deportivo La Coruña losing 1-0 at home to Almeria. And finishing off the day, Getafe beating Malaga 1-0. We're going to talk about the league now, just having a look at these results, because obviously that's 2 games there, a lot to take in really. But the thing to take out of it, it is the brilliant start for Barcelona. I mean, 6 games played, 5 wins for Barcelona, 1 draw, 17 goals and no goals against, a 17 goal difference. Now, Joe, I know you took Barcelona, and I know Rob took Barcelona as well. I took Real Madrid. Obviously, it's too early to tell, really. We haven't done El Clasico yet, so we can't read loads and loads into it. But Joe, I mean, 17 goals. I mean, the best part of 3 goals per game, none against. You can't really ask for a much better start than that, can you? Really?
No, you can't. And I'm curious to see how they handle moving into somebody with a little more firepower, like a Real Madrid. Obviously, Malaga was a pretty good test on the road. Malaga able to take points away from them at 0-0. Did you? This is a fact that I got into, I guess, a Twitter discussion with somebody through the Low Limit Football feed. Was apparently Malaga has not conceded a goal at home this year either. So a pretty good test for for Barcelona. It's going to be interesting to see moving forward if they're able to score against somebody with a very tight defense. I'd like to see how they do against, like a Chelsea. Or even someone like a Juventus that has that solid defense, but can also turn you over a little bit and score a few goals. I don't think they've seen that squad yet, and this is probably something I wanted to bring up with Ian coming up later on. Is Barcelona capable of, keeping that, holding that goalless streak, or how long until they can keep that? Do you think they can do that, absurdly? Up until El Clasico. The other thing that I thought about was interesting, just not to get off sidetrack here, but in La Liga, and Ben, you can confirm this because you should have the page open, but I believe Levante hasn't even scored a goal on the season. You can probably confirm that for me.
They've scored 1.
Oh, they did score 1 finally. Okay, I think they probably scored it this week then.
But they've let in 17, so they're not a false by any means.
Yeah, they're well on their way out the back door. So. But yeah, it's going to be it's interesting to see. I also think that credit to Barcelona. We talked about this in the transfer shows that we've done over the past few weeks. They made an effort to tighten up that defense a little bit, and everyone was in agreement that was the Achilles heel of Barcelona. They've really done a heck of a job to address that. You've got to remember their big acquisition, or their quote unquote big acquisition on the season, Luis Suarez, hasn't even seen the pitch yet. And speaking of Luis Suarez, did you see what Barcelona's doing to him?
I haven't, no.
Oh, they've put him on a diet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently he played in an exhibition match against, I believe, somebody in China or Japan. And Ben, to tell you he looked 20 pounds heavier than normal, he was probably about 25 pounds heavier than normal. And you could see him clearly winded, clearly having trouble keeping up with the play. I believe he scored a goal and maybe set one up. I think that was the tally for him. But immediately after, Barcelona basically said, you're going on a diet, and they're going to probably put him through his paces so that when October 26th, I think, is the match date, 25th or the 26th, when that date comes along, he will be more than ready to face Real Madrid in El Clasico.
Mm-hmm. We'll just run through the league quickly before I just weigh in on the opinions, some of the stuff Joe said. Like I said, Barcelona leading the way, 16 points. Then we have Valencia and Atletico Madrid, both on 14 points. Valencia in the second spot, with a better goal difference. Then we have Sevilla in the last Champions League spot on 13, and then we have Real Madrid and Celta Vigo both on 12 points. Real Madrid above with a better goal difference. Mm-hmm. As far as the relegation places go, we have Cordoba, at the foot of the table on 3 points, and then we have 4 teams on 4 points. Levante that we just spoke about, but with a minus 16, 1 goal scored, 17 against. And then we have Elche minus 9, Deportivo La Coruña minus 8, and Atletico Bilbao minus 2 in 16th, and that's after 6 games. Yeah, I think, Joe, that's what everyone's interested to see, what Barcelona can do at the back, and how tight they can keep that. That for me is going to be the defining moment in the season. And I think, like we spoke on this show before, a lot of people, including the bookies, tipping Real Madrid for the Champions League as well, which we might talk a little bit about later on in the show. But I do think that the two teams, especially Barcelona, it's going to come down to the back end, because it's all well and good to go out and score goals, but at some point the game's going to get turned around, and it's how you deal with that and how you soak that up that can define you as well. It's not just attack. You have to have a certain form of defence as well, and you have to be able to deal with the bigger teams, and especially in Europe as well, because you're going to come up against tough opposition and teams that like to break fast, and and decent strikers that like to score goals.
All right. Ben, the one thing I'm curious about is Real Madrid just seems to run so Jekyll and Hyde, where you get them 1 minute they're playing really, really well, and the next minute they're stumbling a little bit, and I'm wondering if you're going to see the consistency eventually out of Real Madrid, the consistency that you would expect out of a team that deserves the title of Galacticos, where everybody's an all-star at every position. It just doesn't feel like it's there yet, Ben. I mean, do you agree with me, or am I crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I do think so, but I mean, like they said, I think that I think Real Madrid will be alright. I just think that it takes a little while to get going. I mean, really, they are only 4 points away from the top of the table. And they've got two games against Barcelona to turn that around as well. So for me, it's really early. Yeah. But yeah, still, I mean, if you've played 6 games and you've lost a third and you've let 9 goals in, that's not great. Right. And but 3 wins on the spin, you can't really argue with that. Really, it looks like they've started to come into form, and some teams do take a little while to get going. But apparently not Barcelona. But yes, it's always interesting to keep an eye on La Liga, I think, because I just think from all the divisions, this one's probably the closest at the top.
Right. Did I lose you there at all, or?
No.
Okay, good. Okay. I think you were reading what Sir Bob put in the chat as we were having a small Vincent Tan discussion, which we probably saved for the EPL. But Ben, what do we got coming up for this week? What would be the match of the week this week that we're going to make a prediction on?
Yeah, going on to the feature match for this week, the game that stood out for me is Valencia and Atletico Madrid. This is second versus third, both on 14 points, like we said. I think you're going to find that apart from the fact that both teams have made real good starts to the season, like I said, on 14 points, I think Valencia are going to be challenging for that, for that 4th Champions League spot. Whether or not they get it, possibly not, but I definitely think they're going to be in the mix. And obviously this Atletico Madrid team, the champions from last year, obviously no one's really expecting that this year with, probably a weaker team. But still, I think it's going to be a really close game, and this is why I picked it up. I think the home advantage for Valencia is going to give them, a slight edge when, probably man for man, I would say Atletico Madrid are probably the better team. But like I said, with home advantage, I think it's going to be really close, and obviously Valencia in good form. I do expect them to trouble Atletico Madrid, but I don't think they're going to be able to get the win, and I think they're going to share the spoils here, and it's going to be 1-1.
1-1, okay. All right, so that'll close it out for La Liga for us. We'll move it over to Ligue 1, and again, like we said earlier, Ben, we do this here by teamwork, and so covering for Rob, I'm sure he'll be quite happy with the 1-1 draw there in that spot. So if Rob changes his mind after he finds out we picked that match to be 1-1, what I'll do is I'll post it on the Facebook page, and we'll put it up there, which I've got to get back to doing as well. I've got to get back to putting our predictions on Facebook so that we can come back to them during the week. So.
Yeah, I mean, if I get it wrong, I'll take the blame, and if I get it right, then Rob can have the plaudits. I'm not greedy.
Exactly.
I got 3 last week, so I'm okay.
There you go. All right, so let's head over to Ligue 1. This week, or last week, our featured match was Saint Etienne on the road visiting Marseille. This is a battle of the top 2 teams in the league. Both of them on great form. And on this one, I had predicted a 2-1. I believe I predicted a 2-1 Saint Etienne victory. And I got this one wrong. I got the score right. I got the wrong result. Marseille with a winner in this one, 2-1. Goals from Imbula in the 7th minute and Payet in the 28th minute. And Brisson adding one back for Saint Etienne in the 53rd minute. Shots on this one were 14-11 in favor of Marseille with an 8-5 on goal advantage. And Marseille really holding the majority of the possession here, 59-41. They were quite dominant at home, Ben, in this one, Marseille was. I did get to see some of this match. I did want to talk to, again, our guest who actually did the color commentary for this match yesterday on BeIN Sport. But Saint Etienne tends to be a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team on the road. They are a solid, group overall. But this at home, Saint Etienne is a very, very tough team to play. The crowd really gets into it, almost like a 12th man on the pitch. But this Marseille team right now, Ben, is absolutely rolling. They've only lost one match on the season so far. That was 2-1 to Montpellier, I believe, in week 1. So they've really been playing well as of late. Also, this team, covered by or striker, a well-known striker now, Andre Pierre Gignac, who has scored 8 goals so far on the Ligue 1 season. He was actually held scoreless today. He's only been held scoreless in 3 matches so far this season. And in those matches, they managed to win 2 of them, and which one of them was this weekend that they won. The other match was the actual loss to Montpellier. So usually as Gignac goes, they go. And Saint Etienne did a good job of shutting him down. But again, this Marseille team is playing very, very well as a team overall. So I got the right score, but I got the wrong result on this one. But let's head back into the scores and highlights from this Ligue 1 season, or this week. Starting on Tuesday, we had Marseille. This same Marseille team absolutely rolling over Reims 5-0 on the road. Toulouse 3-0 over Rennes. On Wednesday, we had Bastia and Nantes play to a 0-0 draw. Evian 2, Lens 1. Metz 1, Guingamp 0. Lyon at home beating Lorient 4-0. Monaco on the road beating Montpellier 1-0. Nice 1-0 over Lille. And PSG on the road beating Caen 2-0. On Thursday, we had Saint Etienne draw Bordeaux 1-1. And on Saturday, yes, we had Nice beat Monaco 1-0 on the road. Excuse me. Toulouse 1-1 draw with PSG. Metz 3-0 against Reims. Montpellier 2-1 over Guingamp. Lille 1-0 over Bastia. Evian 2-0 over Lorient. And on Sunday, Bordeaux 2-1 over Rennes. Caen and Lens, 2 promoted sides, played to a 0-0 draw. Nantes and Lyon played to a 1-1 draw. And that Marseille match that we had just mentioned, Marseille 2, Saint Etienne 1. So looking at the tables quickly, all teams through 8 matches. Marseille, 6 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. They are on 19 points. They are leading the way and have won 6 matches in a row. Bordeaux on 17 points, Lille on 15, and then we have a group of teams on 14 points, including PSG, Metz, and Saint Etienne. Montpellier and Nice on 13 points, and Nantes in 9th place on 12 points. Propping up the bottom of the table, we have Guingamp, losers of 5 of their last 6. They're on 6 points. Then we have a slew of 4 teams on 7 points, including Reims, Evian, Lorient, and Bastia. Rennes, Lens, and Caen on 8 points each, and Monaco moving their way up the table, having won 2 of their last 3 matches, are in 12th place on 10 points. Toulouse and Lyon rounding out this table right dead in the middle on 11 points each. So looking at this week's featured match, Ben, this match last year would have caught headlines all over the world, and this would have been the absolute match to watch this week. But unfortunately, because of the depletion of the Monaco side, just for me, not as much interest. Also, with the thought that Ibrahimovic, Thiago Silva, and Ezekiel Lavezzi possibly missing this match, there's really not a lot of firepower in this match like there used to be last year. And that is obviously the featured match, PSG at the Parc des Princes playing Monaco. PSG has not lost a match yet, Ben, believe it or not. They are currently 3 wins, 5 draws on the season. And there's a question, like I said, with Ibrahimovic, who is ruled out of his Champions League match this week with Barcelona with a heel injury. He's missed his last 2 matches in the French league as well, and there's potential that he could be missing this match also. Also, like I had said earlier, you're going to be missing Thiago Silva. You're going to be missing Ezekiel Lavezzi. So this is a depleted PSG side. They have been getting some help from Marquinhos and from Edison Cavani, but just not as threatening with the loss of players that they've had. On the other side of the ball, we have Monaco, who's actually, like I said, winners of 2 of their last 3, but they've lost 4 matches in 8 overall this season. So they are an up and down side, obviously having to try and replace Radamel Falcao and James Rodriguez, really proving to be difficult for them. So for this match, I think even though you have a depleted PSG side, I think Edison Cavani and a couple of other players from that team are really helping to pitch in and carry the load. So I'm taking in this one a prediction of a 2-1 PSG victory, especially playing at the Parc des Princes. It's going to be tough, but it's going to be interesting to see how they handle Barcelona coming through there first before they get to this Monaco match. But I just don't think Monaco has enough quality on their side to be able to handle the PSG side. So I'm going to go 2-1 to PSG, and Ben, I'm going to throw it back over to you to go to the Bundesliga.
Yep, we're going to go over to the Bundesliga. Once again, there's midweek games there as well, but we're going to go to last week's featured match, which was Schalke at home to Borussia Dortmund. I went for a 1-1 draw. I got this one wrong. Schalke actually beat Dortmund 2-1 at home. This was after a Dortmund 2-2 draw in the middle of the week as well, which we'll go through in the scores. But yeah, this didn't really look like the Dortmund we're used to seeing. Poor defending, really. And Schalke's second win in a week, arguably, one of the most important ones in years, beating of local rivals. Joel Matip gave the Blues the lead before Choupo-Moting added a second goal, and then Aubameyang pulled one back, but Dortmund weren't able to find an equaliser. But you just got the idea in this game that, Schalke, they looked a bit more confident. They come off the back of the game. Dortmund, it didn't really look there for me. Like I said, the defending definitely wasn't up to scratch. And, when you added the hostile Schalke atmosphere to that, the only one thing was going to happen, and that was Dortmund to be undone. And Schalke came out of this game. And, if Dortmund don't pick up their defending, they're going to be in some real trouble, because there's a few teams biting at their heels. As far as the stats went in this game, Schalke with 11 shots and 6 on target, and Borussia Dortmund with 17 shots and 5 on target. Dortmund with slightly more position at 55%. But like I said, Schalke for me were the better team, but it was just as much Borussia Dortmund they were undoing for themselves. So Dortmund definitely a team to keep an eye on, because if they don't pick the games up, then they're going to see themselves a little bit adrift. Going to go on to the games and round them up from the Bundesliga. Like I said, there was midweek games as well, so I'm going to go from Tuesday to start. We had Werder Bremen losing 3-0 at home to Schalke. Hoffenheim drawing 3-3 at home to SC Freiburg. Eintracht Frankfurt drawing 2-2 with Mainz. Bayern Munich beating Paderborn 4-0. And then on the Wednesday, Berlin beating Wolfsburg 1-0. Hanover beating Cologne 1-0. Borussia Mönchengladbach beating Hamburg 1-0. And then, like I said, Borussia Dortmund drawing 2-2 at home to Stuttgart. Bayer Leverkusen edging out Augsburg 1-0 to round out the Wednesday's games. We had one Friday game, that was Mainz drawing 0-0 with Hoffenheim. And then on to the weekend's games that have just gone. On the Saturday, we had Wolfsburg beating Werder Bremen 2-1. Stuttgart beating Hanover 1-0. Like I just said, Schalke beating Borussia Dortmund 2-1. Paderborn losing 2-1 at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach. Freiburg drawing 0-0 at home with Leverkusen. Cologne losing 2-0 at home to Bayern Munich. And then on to the Sunday, we had two games. Hamburg losing 2-1 at home to Frankfurt. And Augsburg winning 1-0 at home to Hertha Berlin. As far as the table goes, top of the table, 4 wins and 2 draws, 14 points is Bayern Munich. In second, Borussia Mönchengladbach on 12 points. And then in third, we have Bayer Leverkusen on 11. And then we have 3 teams on 10 points. That's Mainz, on 10 points, Hoffenheim on 10 points, both with the same goal difference, and actually both with the same goals scored and goals against, so they're actually nothing to split them at all. So be an interesting one if it finished like that. And Hanover with just a 1 goal difference in 6th. As far as the bottom end of the table goes, we've got Hamburg propping the league with 2 points. Third, Bremen, surprisingly in the playoffs, bottom 3 points. And then we have Freiburg on 4, and then Stuttgart and Hertha Berlin both on 5 points, but Hertha Berlin with a 1 better goal difference. I'm going to go for the game of the week, because been a bit of an interesting league, the German league so far. But the game of the week I've gone for is Hoffenheim versus Schalke. It's surprising really to see Hoffenheim after 6 games sitting on 10 points, but they've done well this year, and they seem to be working well as a team, and they look like quite a decent team at home, and they're playing at home to Schalke. For me, Schalke are going to be challenging for Champions League, and like I said, I think with Borussia Dortmund at the moment they need to pick up. Schalke are going to cut on the heels, but Schalke not with a great start either. And against this Hoffenheim team at home, I think it's going to be a close game. I expect Hoffenheim to be in and around the Europa places, and at home I think it's going to be real close, and I do like to pick the nice close games. But I think it's going to be a tough game for both teams. I don't see either of them giving up too much. I think it'll be pretty low scoring, but I've still gone with both teams to score, and I've gone with a 1-1 draw.
All right, so Hoffenheim, Schalke 1-1. Going to be interesting to see how that match turns out. Like you'd said, it's kind of surprising to see Hoffenheim up there. Also, Ben, another one that I want to point out is the Hamburg side. We talked about them last year. They escaped relegation by winning that playoff match, and a team that basically had never been relegated, and they're really in danger of not even escaping that. They're going to be the automatic team down instead of, in the playoffs. So they've got to get it turned around right away. So, going to be interesting to see. So let me take it over to Serie A. We're as Ben, as you were going through the German Bundesliga, we have Sir Bob losing his mind about Pellegrini and Joe Hart. So I'm sure we'll have to talk about that sometime tonight. But let's get into, as Sir Bob always. I didn't want to pull the Tim Howard's a better goaltender thing because I know it would send him off the deep end. So, let's get into Serie A real quick. And last week's featured match for me was Roma Hellas Verona, and I predicted a 2-0 Roma victory. Ben, for all the bad that I did in League One this week, I got this one dead on. Roma with a 2-0 victory over Verona as predicted, with goals from Florenzi in the 75th minute and Mattia Destro in the 86th minute. In this one, Roma just really dominant overall. They led in shots 23-9 with a 5-3 goal shots on goal advantage. Francesco Totti denied by the goaltender's best friend in the 32nd minute in this one as well. Time of possession, Roma had 71% of the possession to Verona's 29%. And again, like I said, especially coming out in the second half of this match, Roma was very, very aggressive. They had multiple shots on goal and just really took it to them. And it's really interesting to see them kind of get off on that foot, moving into what I would say is probably one of the biggest weeks in Roma history in quite some time in terms of football competition. They've got a serious midweek clash against Manchester City. That's certainly going to be a tough one, and I know who our viewing audience is rooting for. And then they got to come back and play what I would certainly say is the featured match of the week across all leagues in Juventus on the weekend. So, and we'll talk about that one in a minute because I would be crazy not to pick that one as the match of the week. So as predicted, Roma 2, Verona 0. Let's get into the rest of the scores on the week. Starting off on Tuesday of last week with AC Milan kind of slipping up here. Once I thought they played a decent match against Juventus a couple weeks ago, and really nothing to show for it since then. They draw 2-2 with a 10-man Empoli, who picked up a red card in this match. On Wednesday, we had Fiorentina draw Sassuolo 0-0, Verona 2-2 with Genoa, Inter 2-0 over Atalanta, Juve keeping their winning ways and their goals conceded record intact with a 3-0 win over Cesena. Torino 2-1 over Cagliari. Napoli drawing Palermo 3-3. Roma 2-1 over Parma. That goal from Parma, the first goal conceded by Roma this season. Sampdoria 2-1 over Chievo. Udinese 1-0 over Lazio on Thursday. Then heading to Saturday, our previously mentioned Roma 2-0 victory over Verona, and Juventus with a 3-0 road victory over Atalanta. On Sunday, we have Sassuolo losing at home to Napoli 1-0. Torino 1-1 draw with Fiorentina. Cesena drawing 1-1 with 10-man AC Milan. Nagatomo taking 2 yellow cards in this one early and being ejected. Chievo 1-1 draw with Empoli. Inter losing at home to Cagliari 4-1. I'm sorry, this was the match. Nagatomo was thrown out of this match. I apologize. Cagliari absolutely dismantling Inter in this one, which was kind of amazing to watch. Sampdoria 1-0 over Genoa. And on our Monday matches today, Udinese 4-2 over a 10-man Parma side, and Lazio totally putting on Palermo 4-0. So let's hit the tables real quick. I'm going to reverse the table as it's being shown to me because I said so. It's my show. Juventus leading the way. 5 matches, 5 wins, 10 goals for, no goals against, 15 points. Tied with Roma, but ahead on goal differential with 15 points as well. Udinese in third place on 12 points, winners of 4 of their first 5 matches. And Sampdoria in 4th place on 11 points. Inter, Verona, and AC Milan all on 8 points in 5th, 6th, and 7th, respectively. In 8th place, Napoli on 7 points. And then 9th and 10th is a tie between Fiorentina and Lazio on 6 points. Propping up the bottom of the table, we have Parma, Sassuolo, and Palermo, as well as Empoli. All 4 teams on 3 points. Separated by goal differential, and Parma also actually has a victory with 4 losses to go with that. Ben, Parma, 10 goals for, 14 goals against in 5 matches. You're not going to win many matches by giving up 14 goals at a clip. Sassuolo, just not much better. They've only scored 1 goal on the season so far. So again, Empoli just outside the relegation zone on 3 points. Then we have Chievo, Cagliari, and Atalanta on 4 points each. And then right dead in the middle of the table, we have Torino, Genoa, and Cesena on 5 points each. So that is going to lead us to our match of the week. Certainly the match of the week across all competitions, I think. I didn't look closely at the EPL this week, so I'm saying it with rather certain, with quite a bit of certainty. Yeah, well, because if the only other match I would say that would even hold a candle to it is probably going to be Chelsea, ManCity, or maybe ManCity Arsenal, but that's going to be the list. So I don't know if either of those teams are playing each other this weekend, so I'm going with the Juve Roma prediction here. These 2 teams have split. I'm sorry, they haven't split. Juventus has won 4 of the last 6 matches played between them. And this is a great one, Ben. I was doing my research on WhoScored.com, which is a site that I use quite a bit to prep for this show. And on the site, there is a listing of teams' strengths and weaknesses. And Ben, this is no lie. You can actually go and look at this on the Juventus page. The weaknesses listed for Juventus was, and I quote, "Juventus has no weaknesses." How's that? So I don't even think ManCity can brag that, Sir Bob. So according to WhoScored.com, Juventus has no weaknesses, but Roma has difficulty with avoiding offsides, stopping opponents from creating chances, and aerial duels. One of the strong strengths of Juventus was aerial challenges, that they're very good in the air. So certainly an advantage for Juve. They're going to be playing in Torino on this one, so a home match for them as well. Carlos Tevez leading the way currently with Serie A with 4 goals in 5 matches. And Roma being led by Florenzi and Destro, who've scored 2 goals each, both of them scoring their second goals of the season this weekend. So they have spread it out a little bit, but and again, the season is young, but it looks like this Juve side is really getting Carlos Tevez moving along very, very quickly. He's also played well in the Champions League, scoring goals on the last round of matches. So going to be tough to contend with Carlos Tevez, who right now is looking like one of the top strikers in the world, bar none, just scoring goals week in and week out. Both teams also have, this is going to be the interesting part of this match, and hopefully it doesn't take away from the quality of the play this weekend, is that both teams, like I'd said earlier, have very, very big Champions League matches midweek. We have, again, the aforementioned Roma-ManCity match coming up, which we'll talk about in Sir Bob's Man City Corner. And Juve has a big one of their own on the road at Atletico Madrid. So Going to be difficult to play that match there as well. But being a little bit of a homer, Ben, I'm going to stick with Juve in my prediction. I'm going to say that the bad news is Juventus is going to give up their first goal of the season this weekend, but it's going to be in a 2-1 victory for Juventus. So that's what I'm going with. Between these two teams, they've only given up 1 goal on the season. I think we're in for a great match this weekend, Ben. This is the must watch of the weekend, and I think I'm going to be happy with a Juve win. So that match of the week. How is Chelsea versus Arsenal not match of the week when you have two teams playing each other that have only conceded 1 goal between the two of them? And Arsenal certainly slipped this week. So yes, I'm going with Juve Roma. I'll tell you what. Let's save that as a question, Ben, for Ian Joy. Okay, clearly he's a knowledgeable football pundit. He certainly watched a lot of football and played a lot of it over his years. Let's ask him, which match is a bigger match to watch this weekend, Chelsea Arsenal or Juve Roma? And I will agree with whatever he says. How's that?
If that's yeah, okay, that's fair enough. I mean, I must admit it's I think it's super close between both of them for me. I didn't realise it only let him 1 goal as well. That is quite
only 1 goal.
Quite crazy, yeah. But yeah, well, yeah.
Between the two teams, 10 matches played, 19 goals for, 1 goal against. I mean, that's better than.
I think if I was pushed, I think I probably would go with Juventus Roma just simply because I think I'd rather predict the Chelsea game than I would the Juventus Roma game. I think, but it's really close. It's a coin flip for me.
No, I hear you. So, but I know that gets Sir Bob going pretty. Anytime I start bragging about Italy, that gets Sir Bob going pretty good. So, he's
gone Leicester versus Burnley is a bigger match for him. It's a bigger match for me because I've got a vested interest, but for the most people, probably not.
Well, sure, I would imagine, especially with the Burnley result from this weekend. I'd say you're pretty happy so far, Ben. But
well, we're going to do the Premier League next, so we can.
Let's do it. Run over to the Premier League. Let us know what's going on.
Well, we can hover across that and maybe take a few more seconds. But yeah, anyway, we're going over to the Premier League. The featured match from last week was the Merseyside derby. That was the one that I chose. Liverpool Everton. I went with 2-1 Liverpool. It actually finished 1-1. I almost feel like Balotelli knew that I went for 2-1 and just decided not to turn up, because for me, this game, Liverpool should have won this game. Fair play to Everton. They dug in. They really did. And Jagielka's goal was an absolute rocket. Such a great goal.
Goal of the week, Ben. That was goal of the week. If you see that,
absolutely no doubt. I mean, most people must think, oh yeah, Jagielka, 30 yards out at the angle, just let him shoot. But I don't think anyone knew that. Phil Jagielka had it in his locker. We just wish he could do it for England once in a while.
Ben, I got to say, I rewound that goal twice just to make my wife watch it, because it was that kind of class.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have to tell her afterwards. He's a centre back. You'd be like, what?
Yeah, well, no, she wouldn't understand that part. But the fact that the ball.
Well, okay, somebody that stops goals rather than scoring goals. We're just without being condescending, we'll dumb it down a bit. But yeah, anyway, going to the game. Great goal. If you haven't seen it,
one last thing
go
I
and
want
watch
to add about
it.
that goal.
Get on the Jagielka bandwagon.
One last thing I want to add about that goal for Sir Bob, that Tim Howard would have stopped that ball. But anyway,
I would have stopped that goal. I mean, who doesn't? But yeah, like I said, it was a great goal. But yeah, Liverpool took the lead, and it looked like a deserved victory. Really, they were the better team. They were. The stats: 24 shots for Liverpool, 8 on target, 11 for Everton, 5 on target, 46% for Liverpool. So the possession was quite close. But Liverpool definitely had the better of the chances. Obviously, the Gerrard free kick was the goal, and it was actually a record, that goal, 9th Premier League goal in one fixture has not been equalled by anybody, so to go down in history books makes me look clever. But apparently Everton without a win at Anfield since 1999, but in fairness it's a really tough place to go, but I'm sure they went home with that point screaming and shouting. But for me, the thing that really stood out for me in this game was the lack of firepower that Liverpool had. two things for me. Firstly, missing Sturridge. They definitely missed Sturridge in that game. You can't help but feel if Sturridge played that one of the chances definitely would have gone down. Unfortunately for me, unfortunately for Liverpool fans and anyone that wanted Liverpool to win this game, the chances fell mostly to Balotelli, and he just wasn't firing. He wasn't there on the day, and two chances, one fell to Henderson and one to Sterling, and even one of those could have gone in on their day. But like I said, and on top of that, to compound the misery as well, Tim Howard had a great game, and I think all those things together, and an injury time screamer from Jagielka, it just felt like it was wrote in the history box, in the history books, should we say? And you can't help just feel that Liverpool let this go, really, and it just for me it's maybe a little bit of a lack of depth. If you got them out firing Balotelli and Balotelli mine's gone right. Balotelli and Sturridge, if they're playing up and they're playing on, then fair enough. It's great for me, especially if you can get Sterling and play him on the point of a four diamond. I think for me, Sterling with those two up front, when they're on, it's great. But as soon as those two are out, they've really, for me, got nothing there. There's nobody there. You need a first choice striker that has at least got something about him, and I just didn't really do it for me. And but hopefully Balotelli can. I know you said before the show, Joe, that they was talking about Balotelli. And obviously how he's not, well, I say obviously, but they said he's not so super anymore. I think that's a bit harsh. We're only 6 games in, but my opinion, Joe, I'm not sure about yours, but he doesn't quite look like himself at the moment.
He does,
but we're only 6 games in. But what do you think, Joe? What's been your opinion of him so far?
I would agree with you. He doesn't, but this really reminds the way I've seen, and I've seen a little bit of Balotelli so far on his season. The way teams are playing him reminds me a lot of the NBA years ago. Do you remember people and the term hack-a-shack? That when people would get up on the LA Lakers, what they would do is they would purposely, they were down and they wanted to get back in the match. Common practice in basketball is to foul somebody so that the clock stops and you give them 2 shots at the free throw line. Well, Shaquille O'Neal, who was regarded as one of the greatest centers of all time in the NBA, was a horrendous free throw shooter. I mean, I think his lifetime percentage was like 60-something%, where most players in the NBA ride somewhere in the mid to upper 80s. This guy was awful, Ben. I mean, you'd have been better off putting him behind the 3-point line and letting him shoot, and probably had a better chance of him making shots. So what they would do is they would employ this strategy called hack-a-shack, which would just basically, you fouled Shaquille O'Neal, you put him at the line, odds are he wasn't going to score 2 points, the clock stopped, and you got the ball back. And it was kind of a way of slowing the Lakers down. I see a little bit of that with Mario Balotelli. I see him constantly getting hacked, and I see him constantly getting kicked and pushed and shoved and elbowed, especially in the box. And I think that's having an effect on him overall. I'm surprised he hasn't lost his mind yet, which actually is a credit to him or a credit to what they've put into his contract. And and the fact that he hasn't absolutely gone crazy on some of these guys at the moment. But I think
sorry to interrupt you, Joe, but I think it's maybe something to do with Brendan Rodgers. We did touch upon it. I honestly still do believe, come 10 games time, you can call me up on it, but I really do feel like Brendan Rodgers is the right man to put Balotelli on the leash.
I agree 100%. You've got to remember what this guy did with somebody who was certainly a certified head case in Luis Suarez. And I think he's actually got his hooks onto Balotelli as well. And doing a great job with Mario Balotelli. Now, yeah, he hasn't scored the goals. It's funny you bring up Balotelli because I was listening to some of this match on the TalkSport broadcast on XM Radio over the weekend, and they were complaining about Balotelli and how he's just not performing and making runs through the box, these darting runs like Luis Suarez was. And I kept thinking to myself, this is crazy. How can you compare Mario Balotelli to Luis Suarez? Because I understand they both play the same position, but to be honest with you, Ben, that's where the comparisons end between the two. First of all, I do think Suarez is a better striker than Balotelli. It's not arguable. Okay, he is a better striker, but the fact of the matter is, they play a different style. They both play a different style. Balotelli tends to play more of that possession, defender on his back, goal at his back, able to hold the ball and possess the ball and then do something with it. And it was even evident in this match, Ben. You saw it. He did this on the sideline where he picked up the ball. He literally ended up with 3 people on top of him and then dribbled through them. I think this happened and I know they're both mental cases. But he's got that type of quality in his game. Suarez is a much, much faster player, making more positive runs. If you ask Suarez to play the match like Balotelli plays, it's not even close. Balotelli's 1,000 times better. He's bigger and he's stronger and he's able to play that way with a defender on his back. But if you ask Balotelli to play the style of play that Suarez gives you, there's no question Suarez is 1,000 times better. He's a much better He's a much quicker runner. He makes those darting runs. Suarez to me plays a lot more like Tevez. But Balotelli plays nothing like them. Balotelli is 100 times better than somebody who I would compare to him, and that would be like an Alvaro Negredo. Okay, if you had to take between Negredo and Balotelli, I'm taking Balotelli all day. But they're both the same style of player, where they're both that big striker that's able to put a defender right on his back and still manage to possess the ball, and hold up play. So that's just my.
I'd actually like to see them together. Actually, I'd like to see Balotelli and Suarez play together. But
that would be incredible. Could you imagine, a side like that where they had a striker that was able to make darting runs like that and positive, dangerous, threatening runs like that, only to be able to play the ball into a possession, big body who they could then distribute to him? It would be incredible.
For me, Balotelli's when he's on, he's one of the best target mans around for me. He really is. But this is the thing. This is why I really do believe if Brendan Rodgers can get it out of him, then Liverpool have got themselves a real decent bargain. But it's all ifs and buts until we see it. But he's in and around it, and he doesn't seem to get frustrated yet. And if he doesn't, then it will come, and you just get the feeling that once he gets one, then it'll be okay.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Ben, because Sir Bob just put this in the chat. He would take Dzeko over Balotelli and Negredo. I think Balotelli's better than Negredo. I don't think that's arguable. But Balotelli compared to Edin Dzeko, Edin Dzeko, to me, again, is another striker that doesn't quite play the same style as Balotelli. Ben, what are your thoughts on Dzeko versus Balotelli?
Yeah, I think they're slightly different strikers. Dzeko's kind of in between for me. It's like I don't really see Dzeko as out and out, and I don't really see him as a target man. I don't know. I think he's really I can't think of the word, but he's a very original player, Dzeko, for me.
He's a hybrid.
Yeah, this is exactly it. I couldn't think of the word. It took it out of my mouth. But yeah, he's like he's like a 9.5. But he's brilliant at what he does, and I do think it's really hard to compare them both. I
do.
I think we would struggle to do it. But at the same time, I think if he was going to take someone like straight off the bat, you probably would take Dzeko, but only because Dzeko's more consistent. If I had to make a decision like right now on the spin of a coin. Okay. But if you gave me like a Balotelli is best and a Dzeko is best, and I probably would take Balotelli just because I just think Balotelli gives you a little bit more.
I've got to say that in one of his posts there in the chat room, he brings up Suarez and Aguero as a comparison. I would like to see Aguero Balotelli. I mean, we saw that at ManCity. I think that would be a fantastic, that would be the best combination. And if you think about it, when we talked about, comparing Negredo and Balotelli, if you remember, Negredo had his best success when he was on the pitch with Aguero last year. At the beginning of the season, both of them played very, very well together. So it's, I do like the Aguero Balotelli combination just as much. So, but again, comparing it to Dzeko, it's certainly. It's difficult to compare the two. Dzeko has characteristics of Suarez. Dzeko has characteristics of Balotelli. And it's.
I think that's why they went out and bought Negredo. It'd be pointless buying two strikers exactly the same, and I think that's why he got Negredo. Negredo's a 10, and for me, like Dzeko's 9.5, like we said. So, it's always nice to have a little a bit different as you go through your strikers, just so then if a game needs changing, you can change it.
Right, exactly. So before Sir Bob actually loses his mind on us because he thinks we should get a room because we agree too much, let's keep.
That's what makes it a good show. That's why you listen every week.
So, well, no, he listens because we gave him a segment of the show. That's why.
That's true.
So now, go ahead. I forgot where we cut you off. I think that was actually.
It's okay. We just finished the Liverpool Everton game. Anyway, we're gonna go through to the scores of this week before we end up just talking about each other's weeks, and we can just have a discussion about what happened there. Now, in all honesty, this was the only league actually I believe that didn't have any midweek games in the league. So we're just going to go straight to the Saturday. We'll start off with Arsenal Tottenham, the 1-1 draw, the North London derby. We had Sunderland drawing 0-0 with Swansea. Southampton beating Queen's Park Rangers 2-1. And again, I want to touch on just very briefly, Joe, whilst we can, is the Man United West Ham game. Man United did win 2-1. But probably to Sir Bob's annoyance. I don't know if you got a chance to see the game, Joe. And I must admit, hand on heart, I was watching the Blackburn game. I managed to find a stream, but from what I could hear from my brother downstairs, he was clinging to dear life against the West Ham team at Old Trafford. I mean, don't get me wrong. Man United have got defensive injuries coming out of their, out of their backside, shall we say? Is it past the watershed? It's not in America, but yeah, we'll say backside. But for me, with the lack of threat that this West Ham team have, really nothing particularly outrageous. This Man United team should just be getting the job done. And, West Ham, Man United clung on. They really, really did cling on for this 3 points. Not convincing at all for me. They're really, really not. We did say they're going to take a little bit of time to gel. And like I said, they have got loads and loads of injuries. But, I think they're lucky to be in a league, for me, that is so competitive. And teams are just beating teams in and around them week in, week out, because they're so close in skill level. That you look at this Man United team, you look at the league, which I'm just going to take a quick look at now, and Man United are only actually 2 points away from the Champions League places, and this is a Man United team for me that have done barely anything this year, which just shows, if they were playing in a division where maybe the top four are a bit more dominant, I think they could be adrift by now. But like I said, there's just no easy games in the Premier League anymore. But what do you think of Man United so far, Joe? Obviously, they're going to shore up a little bit at the back, but even once their first choice back four come in, it's going to take a little bit of time to gel. All the injuries. For me, this season's going to come too soon. What do you think?
The thing that I think about with this Man United team right now, the way they are set up and the way they, and the acquisitions that they made in the offseason, in the transfer window. What if David Moyes was still coaching this team? If David Moyes is coaching this team, they're not even firing him, Ben. They're stringing him up on a light pole, okay? And I think Louis van Gaal has been given quite a great deal amount of leeway, let's say.
Yeah, he's been given a wide berth, I think. Yeah, you have to. Yeah,
no doubt. And Sir Bob says they suck at the back, and I agree with you a little bit there. And
in fairness, I made sure I mentioned that. In fairness, they have got only one fit centre back in the whole club, and no full backs that are fit. They're playing three midfielders and one player from the youth team. So for me, you need to give that a little bit of time.
But they do
to gel, but. Yeah,
they have quality. When they pick up Daley Blind as a defensive midfielder, they pick up Marcus Rojo as a defensive back, not as a wing back that really jumps into the play. I mean, they tried to make some moves to better themselves. Now, Ben, my other point with this team is that they have so much quality in the midfield and at the striker position. I mean, we're talking Van Persie, Rooney, Falcao, Di Maria. Juan Mata. I mean, Ben, this is almost the kind of thing where they should be playing this match like Barcelona. They should be playing these games like Barcelona did last year. They knew they were terrible in the back. There was no doubt about their lack of quality in the back. What did they do? It was death by a million passes. It was tiki-taka. I think Louis van Gaal's got to look at this team and say, you know what? We've got to go play tiki-taka. We've got to go and possess this ball. And we've got to knock it around back and forth, and play more of a Spanish style instead of more of an English style, because that's the way this team is constructed right now with no quality on the back line. I mean, once you get the back line returning, and you get those players returning from injury, yeah, sure, go ahead and open it back up again. But at the moment, they've really got to change their style of play to match the quality of their players on the pitch. And I don't think Van Gaal is completely doing that. And like you said, what happens when you do that? Well, you get Wayne Rooney thrown out of a match for a silly red card. A ridiculously silly red card. And then they've got to hold on by the skin of their teeth the last 30, 40 minutes and hold off, a side that is mid-table at best. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's going to take a while for them to bed in. I did read somewhere. I must admit I can't remember the exact source, but the Louis van Gaal came out and said they're not listening. They're not taking my ideas for tactics on board. So obviously, for me, there's a little bit of miscommunication or misunderstanding between manager and the team at the moment, coupled with a load of injuries. And I think you kind of have to give him that chance until he's got a full team, because with the back line they've got at the moment, that back line, it's awful. It really is, because they're so deep in it, and most of the teams in the Premier League could be exactly the same if that happens. So we'll have a look at it once they've got their team back. But yeah, I mean, Man United fans, they've got to be worried, and I think it's going to be too much. By the time they get their full team back and, firing, it might be another, 12 games or, something like that. So, and in a league that's this tough, are you really going to be able to pick up enough points to get in the Champions League? I don't think so. So we'll have to see if he's there at the start of next season. But going on, Hull City 2 and Sir Bob's Man City 4. Crystal Palace beating Leicester 2-0. Chelsea beating Aston Villa 3-0, and as we spoke about, Liverpool drawing 1-1 with Everton. It was a very, very super Sunday with West Brom beating Burnley 4-0, and it went very, very quiet, and it made my Sunday really good. So, yeah. And on to Monday, Stoke City beating Newcastle 1-0. We're just going to go to the table before we look at the game of the week. Topping the table is Chelsea. After 6 games gone, 16 points, and haven't lost a game yet. Southampton in second on 13 points. Manchester City in third on 11. And then we have Arsenal, Swansea and Aston Villa all on 10. Arsenal with 4 goal difference, Swansea with 2 goal difference, and Aston Villa -3. Looking at the bottom end of the table, bottom of the league and propping up the table with only 1 goal scored, the almighty Burnley. And then in 19th place, we have Newcastle also on 3 points with the same goal difference, but they've scored more goals than just the one by Burnley. Queen's Park Rangers on 4 points, and then we have Sunderland on 5 points. We're just going to go on to have a look at the game of the week, which is awfully close to being our game of the whole week across all the divisions. Possibly even is pointless arguing. But anyway, Sunday the 5th, Chelsea Arsenal, London derby. The two teams are the only 2 teams left in the division that haven't lost a game. Chelsea obviously winning 5 and drawing 1. Arsenal winning 2 and 4 draws. Joe, obviously Chelsea title favourites. We said that beginning of the season, and I think Arsenal are going to make the Champions League. Maybe not so on their quality as much as the fact that I think the teams around them definitely don't have the quality to trouble them. But this is always going to be a close game. Arsenal are never an easy team to beat. But this Chelsea team, I know we're only 6 games in, and we shouldn't really be making judgments, but it looks to see that they've gelled quite quickly. And Mourinho he knows how to get the job done, as boring as it can be to watch on occasion. But I do think Chelsea at home, they're going to be favourite against the whole Premier League. I do think at Stamford Bridge. But like I said, I think this will be a tight affair. I fully expect Chelsea to score and then just shut the game down. So I'm going to go for 1-0 to Chelsea.
I would agree with that. In fact, though, I would think Chelsea's going to win this match, but I would actually take it up higher than 1-0. For some reason, Arsenal hasn't gotten Mesut Ozil turned around, and he's certainly one of the higher quality men on the pitch for Arsenal. They've been getting some pretty good performances out of Aaron Ramsey over the past couple weeks. But this Chelsea side, if this were last year, Ben, I would say yeah. Definitely 1-0 to Chelsea. You said this match is at Stamford Bridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I would have definitely said last year. I would have said 1-0 to Chelsea. But the thing for me is Diego Costa is is that piece, Ben. He is that missing link that Chelsea was totally missing last year. He's scoring goals at will, playing as again one of the best strikers in the world. I think right now your best strikers in the world right now are probably Lionel Messi, Carlos Tevez, and Diego Costa. I mean, tough to argue those three strikers right now, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I must admit this. I did predict this result upon the fact that Arteta or Wilshere come back, because at the moment Arteta and Wilshere are both out, and I don't think it's much of a surprise. Most Arsenal fans know that they do need to go out and buy a decent defensive midfielder for me. I think that's now that apparently Welbeck's, he seems a bit more that he's settled, but for me that seems like the weakest part of the team, that kind of anchor role. And if they're both out, and if Arteta's out, then I do think that they might struggle a bit and possibly see a bit more high scoring. But I just think that this Chelsea team, I think Mourinho knows what he's up against, and I'm going to keep with the 1-0 for now. But yeah.
But I would agree with
you. But either way, I expect Chelsea to get the job done here, and I think the teams are going to have a real trouble. All the teams are going to have a real big trouble catching Chelsea this year.
I would agree with you, especially in this match. I don't think. I think the only team of quality that can probably challenge Chelsea is that ManCity side who used that Frank Lampard goal late in the match to pull even with Chelsea a couple of weeks ago. I think right now, to me, they're the only team that shows enough quality to challenge Chelsea. I don't see it. I don't see it out of Spurs. I don't see it out of Arsenal particularly. I don't see it out of Everton, as was evident with a 6-3 thrashing a few weeks ago. I don't see it out of this Man United side either. I think, I can't wait to see that Chelsea-Man United match, because as these teams sit, Ben, Chelsea's just going to pick them apart, especially with a weekend back line like they have. That game could be 4-1 when all is said and done. And I think United would be lucky to get the one, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, at this moment in time, I've heard a few Man United fans touting away on Twitter and all the kind of places we're only 2 points away and blah blah blah. But I don't even think it's that. Like, with this backline, I don't even understand how they're anywhere near the top half of the table. But we shall see where they are in 10-15 game time when the defenders come back.
I agree. So, Ben, before we go any further, Sir Bob put something in the chat that I definitely want to mention. And it pains me to mention this as an American, because as an American I'm supposed to hate Mexican soccer players, but it's kind of tough to overlook this one. And I'm going to read it directly from the chat, which is impressive. In front of his home fans at Estadio Azteca, Miguel Layún put in the performance of a lifetime. The Club America right back played the kind of game fullbacks dream of, scoring all 4 goals, Ben, in America's 4-1 romp over Santos Laguna. Santos Laguna is a very, very good side too, Ben, by the way. With 3 of the 4 while 3 of the 4 came from inside the box, Layún's second was a sensational 45-yard chip on the first touch half volley with the goalkeeper way off his line. The Mexican national team defender beat out Lionel Messi, Atletico Madrid's Koke, and Cagliari's Alkin Egdal, who I watched him play a hell of a game this week for this week's honor. So he was named World Footballer of the Week for his performance. Ben, 4 goals from a defender. Crazy, isn't it?
It is. It just, these things don't happen very often, and if you're going to do stuff like that, it just shows this is why we love football, because you just don't know what players are capable on their day, and this is what we've seen. And it's nice to see that it's not always just the bigger clubs and the European clubs getting the plaudits. It's nice to see when people do something worthy of media attention, that they get the plaudits that they rightfully deserve.
My next question to you is, and Sir Bob puts it in there, how long until he's in Europe? I mean, Miguel Layún has been talked about in circles on this CONCACAF side for a very, very long time. I've gotten to see him play firsthand, with all the Mexico-U.S. matches, especially in World Cup qualifying. I'm very aware of this guy and his capabilities. The man is a solid, defender, and he's young too. If I remember right, I'd have to look him up, but I think he's only like 24 years old. He's not very old. This guy could seriously come over. I would personally think that he would do better in Spain than he would in England, but I think a Spanish side would be wise to try and pick him up and add him to the defensive side. I don't know if you've had a chance to see much of Miguel Ayun, Ben. You might have seen a little bit of him during the World Cup, though.
Yeah, I have seen a little bit of him. Yeah, he does look quite decent. I do think there's still more to come from him, but obviously I think he needs to go and play bigger football to develop and play the bigger pressure games against better teams and improve like that.
Sure. So, all right, let's close up our league coverage. And to Sir Bob's chagrin, we've got an international break coming up soon, but that's going to coincide with the Champions League play that we're going to talk about next. So, Ben, we've got a couple of matches that you and I are going to preview. And what we're going to do is we're going to share Rob's preview himself. And Miguel Ayun's 26 years old, so it's still on the younger side, still certainly valuable enough that somebody would want to come over and pick him up. But getting back to our Champions League coverage, Ben, I say we split. We do Rob's game split first, and we'll make a prediction on it, and then we'll hit up our games. What do you think?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, so the pitching in for the team, the match that Rob was going to preview for us is the PSG Barcelona match. Certainly one of the highlights of this week. Unfortunate that we're going to be missing so many players in this one, like the Thiago Silvas, Ezekiel Lavezzi's, and Zlatan Ibrahimovic's of the world. Zlatan recently playing for, not recently, but 5 years ago, playing for this Barcelona side, and now on the challenging side, on the PSG side. But this match is going to be played on Tuesday. Like I had mentioned, those three players are going to be out. And across all competitions, Ben, Barcelona is yet to give up a goal. They didn't give up a goal in their match in the Champions League. They haven't given up a goal in La Liga this year. So I see a Barcelona victory here, Ben. What are your thoughts on this match?
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think with the players that PSG have got out, that was the best hope for them really to get something from this game against the Barcelona team that look really on form. We're going to be firing on all cylinders. But I've gone for a Barcelona win as well. I don't think this PSG team are going to be a walkover, especially not at home. But I think Barcelona will get the job done. I'm going to go for 1-0 Barcelona. I still think it's going to be relatively low scoring.
I see. I think it's actually going to be a little bit higher scoring than that. So you're going to go 1-0 Barca, and I'm just going to write this down so that we can both be right or wrong. I'm going to actually go to a 2-1 Barca victory. I think the margin is going to be the same, but I think we're going to see a few more goals. I was tempted actually to say 3-1 in this one because Barcelona is really, really flying high right now. I mean, we saw them beat up a lowly Granada side this weekend, 6-1. Solid team. I think there's potential for them to really blow out a weakened or depleted PSG side in this one. So it's going to be an interesting watch to say the least. So. But let's go. I'm going to give you a 2-1, and we'll take over for Rob doing that. So, Ben, which match did you have that we were going to talk about?
I had the Arsenal Galatasaray game. I do think that this Arsenal team, that they're looking a little bit better for me. I know they did draw 1-1 with Tottenham. But for me, they had the better of the ball there, and they probably did deserve a little bit more than they got, albeit a close game, and derby's always like that. But I think they're just playing a little bit more as a team, and I think it was going to kind of come down for me to Danny Welbeck. I just think they needed an out-and-out striker, and Danny Welbeck, for all the time at Man United, he was never really played out-and-out, and he's kind of getting that time now with Giroud out, and he looks a bit more comfortable, and he's playing, for me, the best I've seen him play in a while. But on the flip side, like I said earlier, there's going to be no Jack Wilshere for this game. There's going to be no Aaron Ramsey, and there's going to be no Arteta. So for me, I don't know who's going to sit in this Arsenal midfield, which is going to leave the defence a little bit open for me. But I don't think Galatasaray are going to cause them loads and loads of problems, but it's going to make the game tighter for me. I think you're going to see Arsenal score at some point, late or early in the second half, and I just think the Galatasaray plan to sit deep and soak it up. They're going to have to come out at some point, and then they're probably going to get caught on the break because there's still a lot of quick players in this Arsenal team. So I've gone for Arsenal 2-0 to catch Galatasaray on the break when they have to come out late in the game.
Okay, I can definitely see that. This to me, Ben, this game is one of those tougher ones to predict, just because this Galatasaray team can be so difficult to predict overall, and they've proven that time and time again in Champions League and in other competitions. So, I could easily see a 2-0 Arsenal victory. I could see with the injuries you had mentioned with Ramsey out and oh boy, his name's escaping me now.
Wilshere.
Jack Wilshere, thank you. With Ramsey and Wilshere out, you could easily see where they wouldn't have enough quality in the midfield to compensate, and even see like a crazy 1-0 turnover from Galatasaray. So I certainly agree with you, but I think this Galatasaray team is probably a little bit trickier than what you kind of see on paper. So for me, guys. My match that I'm going to talk about is, one that's going to be close to me, and that is the Atletico Madrid-Juventus match. This match is on Wednesday. Looking back on the previous results, Atletico was a surprise loser to Olympiacos on the road 3-2, while Juve was breezing through an easy victory over Malmo 2-0 in this group. Clearly, these two sides are considered the class of the sides, although we have that we did have that surprising loss for Atletico a couple weeks ago. Atletico's big time scorers, obviously we've talked about them time and time again, Antonio Griezmann and Mandzukic, where those are the guys that scored for them in the Olympiacos match. But as we mentioned earlier, Juve's being led by Carlos Tevez, who seems to be scoring goals at will and really found his scoring streak, and he's going to be tough to handle for them. So Mandzukic might have a little bit of a difficult time. He suffered a broken nose a week ago. Is going to be playing in this one with a mask to protect his face, and Atletico really after losing that Olympiacos match have won back-to-back matches in La Liga, so they're kind of getting back on the right track. Again, we look at Juventus. Juventus again is yet to concede a goal, so they're playing wonderfully defensively. They are going to be shorthanded without Andrea Pirlo and with Martin Cáceres missing this match due to injury. But I think, Ben, in this one, the bookies in this one, Ben, I looked this one up. The bookies are saying this is going to be a 2-2 draw. I feel like that's kind of a heavy score. I think that's a high score. I'm going to be a homer in this one, and I'm going to take a 1-0 Juve victory. And see them continue their goalless streak or their goals conceded streak continue overall. I think they're going to lose that one to Roma. I think there's just going to be too much competition over the course of a week. So I'm going with a 1-0 Juve victory in this one, and hopefully we'll see what happens. So, Ben, just to run down the other matches that we can expect this week from the Champions League. On Tuesday, we're going to see an early match between CSKA Moscow and Bayern Munich, which I would imagine Munich would roll in that one. An interesting one, we're going to see Ajax and Apoel play. Ajax kind of a little bit on the downslope, but they're going to come up against a weaker Apoel side. I would expect Ajax to pick up a result there. We're going to see Sporting on the road. I'm sorry, Sporting at home play Chelsea. I would imagine Chelsea should roll in that one. Schalke, Maribor, Shakhtar Donetsk, Porto, which should be an interesting match. Bate, Athletic Bilbao, which I would imagine Athletic should roll in that one. And the anticipated one we're going to talk about later, ManCity Roma. Ben, aside from the ManCity Roma match and the PSG Barca match, any of those Tuesday matches interest you?
Not particularly. I must admit, I haven't got all of them up in front of me, but I did have a little look earlier, and in fairness, I think the ones we picked out for me are definitely the standout ones. Yeah,
definitely. So moving on to Wednesday's matches, we have Zenit St. Petersburg on an early one against Monaco at home. Bayer Leverkusen, Benfica, Arsenal, Galatasaray, as we talked about earlier. Anderlecht at home to Borussia Dortmund. Malmo at home to Olympiacos. Basel, Liverpool at Basel. And Ludogorets at home to Real Madrid. That one's going to be a thumping, I think, by Real Madrid. But anything there that sticks out to you, Ben? For me, I think it's the Leverkusen-Benfica match looks interesting to me. It looks on the interesting side to me, Ben.
The other day, and looking at how bad doesn't stand out like a massive game. It likes a little flutter, and they like to go against the underdogs. get on the Anderlecht, been really, really poor at the back this season, and they don't look like they're standing up to any kind of pressure from any teams. And this Anderlecht team, they're not much to write home about. Really, not that great on paper, but with a home support behind them, I could see Anderlecht getting the 3 points there.
I agree with you, especially with the way Dortmund's kind of down lately. I can certainly see Anderlecht kind of pulling the surprise here at home and giving Dortmund a little bit of a difficult match. But Dortmund's also that kind of side that before you know it, they just kind of turn it on, and it wouldn't surprise me they run into Anderlecht and win this match 5-0. It's one of those. Borussia Dortmund's been a Jekyll and Hyde team as of late, as well as some of the other ones we've talked about, including Man United. So that is certainly one of the more interesting matches to watch, Ben. So
I think it all depends on whether the head's down or not going into the game. But for anyone that fancies it, it's 5-1 on Anderlecht, and I don't know. I just like the price looking at it.
I would agree. So that'll close it out. We'll come back next week and we'll recap all the scores from the Champions League. I think after this week of matches, we don't see Champions League action again until October. Looks like the October 21st. So we'll definitely prep those games. Just looking at that list quickly, we've got Roma Bayern Munich on that list, so that's going to be certainly one that we're going to be talking about. So, but that'll wrap it up for our Champions League. Ben, let's hit the Europa League quickly because we've still got MLS to cover, and then we can expect Ian Joy to be coming on. I would expect within the next half hour or so. So let's talk about the Europa League quickly. We've got a round of Europa matches coming up this week as well. Ben, I don't know if you prepped any of the matches. I did do a little homework on the Dinamo Kiev Steaua Bucharest match that's coming up that I wanted to talk about briefly, but I'm going to run through all the upcoming fixtures, Ben, and then we'll just go from there. So, and these matches again, as Europa is traditionally played, it's all going to be played on Thursday. We've got Dinamo Moscow, PSV Eindhoven, Krasnodar Everton at Krasnodar, Spartak Prague versus Young Boys, Slovan Bratislava versus Napoli, Dinamo Kiev Steaua Bucharest, which we'll talk about in a moment, AAB versus Rio Ave, Guingamp versus PAOK, Dinamo Minsk Fiorentina, Lokeren versus Metalist Kharkiv, Trabzonspor versus Liege Warsaw, Feyenoord versus Standard Liège, Rijeka versus Sevilla at Rijeka, Wolfsburg Lille, which is an interesting one to me, Estoril Panathinaikos at Estoril, Saint Etienne at home to Dnipro. That's gonna be a fun one to watch too, because that Saint Etienne team, like I said earlier, is tough at home. Inter versus Karabakh at Inter, Zurich versus Borussia Mönchengladbach at Zurich, Villarreal at home to Apollon, HJK at home to Club Brugge, Torino playing at home to FC Copenhagen, Asteras Tripoli at home to Partizan Belgrade, Tottenham at home to Besiktas, Astra Giurgiu at home to Salzburg, and Celtic at home to Dynamo Zagreb. Ben, anything that you like there?
I think the Dynamo Moscow PSV one is an interesting game because I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be really tough to call as well. PSV is a slightly better team for me, but Dynamo at home, I just don't think either team's going to want to lose that match, and I think you're probably going to see a score draw there. I think I would probably go for 1-1 in that game, but that's an interesting game. It's a game that I would probably sit down and watch. But for me, the one of the standout, and probably the standout from the round for me, is Wolfsburg Lille.
Yeah.
I think it has to be the best game in the league for me. Obviously, Wolfsburg last year they did impress me. They look like a real decent team, and Lille the same in France. I do think this is going to be one of those kind of games where the home advantage could, and the crowd, Partizan crowd, could make the difference, and I think it probably will make the difference. And I think it's going to be quite close, maybe a little bit scrappy at times. They're both really tight at the back, good defensive teams. I think you're only going to see one goal in it, and probably one goal in the game. I'm going to go for 1-0 Wolfsburg.
Okay, I would. I think that game is going to be very, very close as well. I would probably take that one as a 1-1 draw. It's going to be tough to see if Lille can get Divock Origi going to maybe equalize that match. I think, as I've always said, Vincent and Yema, they have the quality and goal for Lille, but Wolfsburg certainly playing well so far this season. So I think we'll probably see a 1-1 draw. Otherwise, like you said, Ben, a 1-0 Wolfsburg win would not surprise me at all. And because Sir Bob's report is set to take over after agreeing to contract details. So, going to be interesting to see what happens with that one. So, my match that I wanted to talk about quickly was Dinamo Kiev, Steaua Bucharest. Steaua last week or a couple weeks ago defeating AB at home 6-0, and Dinamo Kiev beating Rio Ave on the road 3-0. Steaua Bucharest is currently first in the Romanian league, Ben. They are 7 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, led by Claudiu Chesaru with 3 goals and Paul Ruscu with 2 goals. And they've won 4 of their last 6 matches, 4 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss in their last 6. Dinamo Kiev is currently 3rd place in the Ukrainian Premier League behind Shakhtar Donetsk and Dnipro, but they've also won 4 of their last 6 matches. They are 4 wins and 2 draws in their last 6, and really haven't scored many goals so far this season. They've got goals from Yarolenko, Belhanda from Turkey, and Kravets, all scoring a goal each so far in this season. They also all scored in that match against Roma, and they're going to be in the Europa. I don't see them, for at least an aggressive match being played by both teams. So that's going to be my prediction: is a 2-2 draw between Steaua Bucharest and Dinamo Kiev. So just looking, this is something I want to ask. Ian Joy, when he comes on, is his thoughts of David Moyes possibly taking over for Pardew at Newcastle. This would have been better if it happened last week. We would have gotten to ask Ray Hudson about it. That certainly would have been much better.
I think it's a really interesting one for me. I think David Moyes at Newcastle is a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, I agree, and I think he will certainly turn him around. I also want to, Ben, just confirm on the air that Ian Joy will be on after 8:00. He's confirmed that with me through messages. So.
Okay.
But yeah, I do agree. Moyes, I think Moyes got a bad hand dealt to him when he took over at Man United, and I think the expectations were so high that he just could never meet them. The problem with David Moyes in the spot that he was put in is that, the old saying goes, you don't want to be the boyfriend after the girl breaks up with the long-standing boyfriend. You want to be the guy after the guy. And Moyes was the guy after the long-standing boyfriend and Sir Alex Ferguson. He didn't want to be there. He wanted to be Louis van Gaal. He wanted to be the guy after the guy. And and so I think he was given an unfair shake there. And I think he's going to be quality manager for Newcastle. This Newcastle side was decent last year, Ben. And I don't see how they, I see them, holding their ground. I see them actually making a comeback if they get somebody like Moyes in there, to take over. I'm just looking at this whole thing that Sir Bob is putting in the chat. Pardew has just said he has not been informed of any changes and will be reporting to training tomorrow. So it sounds like maybe they fired him. This could again be a lot of rumor, but even rumor would be interesting to chat about, don't you think?
Oh, of course, yeah. For me, I think David Moyes, like you said, it was a tough job going there. I mean, like we said a few times on this show, only Alex Ferguson could have took the Man United team to the title he did in his last season. So realistically, they weren't a championship winning team, and then he's came in, and it's a period of progression for this Man United team. But they're chucking money at it, and what can you say? But I think David Moyes going to Newcastle. He can do fine there. I still think he could come in this year, take Newcastle to mid-table, I'd expect, and then push them for then, and maybe next season they'll go back and start fighting for top half again.
I agree. So, Ben, I'm going to reverse the listings here just a little bit. I do want to throw out the scores from the the CONCACAF Champions League that we had some matches this week, and then I'm going to jump into MLS stuff, and then we'll see where we're at time-wise and see if Ian will be ready to come on and chat with us. So just to run down the quick scores of the CONCACAF Champions League, last Tuesday we had Sporting KC beating Real Esteli 3-0. We had the Portland Timbers totally destroying Alpha United 6-0. We had on Wednesday Pachuca beating Municipal 4-1. We had DC United moving forward with a 2-0 victory over Tauro. Red Bull eliminated from the competition with a 0-0 draw at FAS. And Herediano 2-1 over Leon on Thursday the 25th. We had Comunicaciones with a 2-0 Rico. with Alanuese coming up for the first. We have Comunicaciones, Alanuese, Cruz Azul, and that I believe. Let's load the tables quickly just to kind of run down that's advancing and who isn't. In Group A for them, we have Pachuca advancing forward on 9 points currently. They still have one more match to play against Real España. In Group 2, we have Sporting KC still in a fight with it. They have one more match against Saprissa. I believe that match is on the road, but needing just a draw or even a 1-0 defeat will actually see them through to the next round. Real Esteli's already been eliminated. In Group 3, Montreal Impact are going to win that group with a 9-point edge over New York Red Bull. I believe the Impact and Red Bull still have a match to play against each other in that one, but it's all said and done. Group 4, DC United will move on with a win or a draw or even I apologize. DC United has moved through. They are on 9 points. Waterhouse has played all 4 of their matches. They're on 6 points. So DC United has moved through from Group 4. Group 5, the Portland Timbers currently lead the way and also have a plus 11 goal differential. They're on 9 points. They have one more match on the road to Olympia, and really needing a 2-0 loss will actually suffice for them there. So that one. And points with Chorillo played all their matches. We have an Alanuese Azul with the winner of needing just a draw in that one as well. Group 7, we have Herediano closing out that particular group with a 10-point edge right now. They were 3 wins and 1 draw. Leon and Metapan eliminated from the competition. And in Group 8, we have America currently drawn with Comunicaciones on 7 points each. Bayamon eliminated from the competition. America needing just a draw as they are ahead on goal differential 14, plus 14 versus plus 7 for Comunicaciones. But that match, just if I can get an idea here as to when that match is being played and where, we'll give you an idea. That'll be an interesting one. So America, which I believe we just talked about, that was the Miguel Layun side that we were just talking about. I'm going to scroll through their scheduled matches here quickly if you'll bear with me a second. America Comunicaciones is going to be played at the Azteca, so barring a miracle, I would expect America to pull through on that one, Ben. So that is our CONCACAF Champions League coverage for the week. Ben, I'm kind of disappointed in the fact that the Red Bull have been eliminated from this competition. They certainly had a group that was winnable for them with FAS and with the Montreal down this season. As Conquet did, you didn't see Thierry on this one. And unfortunately, I think they should have probably put a little more effort into this one. It would have been nice to see them move forward as the Supporter Shield winners from MLS from last year, but they are eliminated from this particular competition. So a couple of other things I want to mention that Sir Bob put in the chat. Samir Nasri had brain surgery this week and was photographed from his hospital bed saying that everything went well. And I believe he is out of, as Sir Bob is reporting, he is out of action for a month due to the surgery. Alvaro Negredo left training at Valencia on Monday after picking up an injury with a clash with teammate Ruben Vezo. Inside Spanish Football reports that Negredo, who only recently recovered from a metatarsal injury, has now suffered another setback and could be returning to his parent club for further evaluation. Ben, let's take that story. Can you imagine, loaning Negredo out to Valencia only to have him get into a fight with a teammate and then get re-injured?
Yeah, it seems outrageous, doesn't it?
That's a lot of crazy, isn't it? I mean,
it is. It just shows you that it's a very unpredictable game, and regardless of what side of it you're on.
Yeah. So hopefully they've stopped swinging their purses at each other long enough for Negredo to get healthy again. So let's head over to the MLS quickly, Ben, and then kind of we'll see where we stand at that point.
I think probably the only person happy about that is Jovetic, I'd guess.
Yeah, right, exactly. So going over to our MLS coverage, and I will scroll back up on what Sir Bob said about one of the TFC players. Wednesday's match, FC Dallas beating the Seattle Sounders 3-1. On Friday, we had Sporting KC losing at home to the New England Revolution. This New England Revolution side has really, really been playing well as of late. Just looking at their run of play here, they're winners of 5 of their last 6. They are really coming on strong. Going to be tough to play against in the playoffs. Lee Wen really doing the job for them there. But they defeated Sporting KC 3-2 on Friday. On Saturday, the aforementioned Toronto FC defeating the Portland Timbers, who were in a playoff hunt, 3-2, also keeping Toronto's hopes alive for the playoff position there. DC United 1-0 over the Philadelphia Union. Seattle Sounders getting off their losing ways with a 4-2 victory over Chivas, who apparently, according to Sir Bob, has been sold to a unanimous buyer, which hopefully is good for them because they really could use the help. Vancouver Whitecaps probably, and I didn't look at the standings yet, so I'm saying probably climbing back into the playoff hunt or playoff position with a 2-1 victory over Real Salt Lake. Columbus Crew 2-0 over the Montreal Impact. Colorado Rapids 1-1 draw with San Jose Earthquakes. And last night we had the Houston Dynamo beating the Chicago Fire 2-0. And the New York Red Bull absolutely laying a stinker on the West Coast, losing to the LA Galaxy 4-1. I believe a goal and 2 assists on this one for Landon Donovan, a goal for Zardis, and 2 goals for Roy Keane in that one. And I'm recalling all of that from memory from the box score this morning, so hopefully I'm accurate on that one. The MLS table, which Sir Bob is so kind to put up in the chat for me, but I actually have it here in front of me. And thank you, Sir Bob, though, for helping out. The Eastern Conference, DC United on 51 points leading the way currently. Sporting KC in second place with 45 points. They are losers of 5 of their last 6 and really having a tough time. Honestly, the way they're going right now, Ben, they're probably gonna fall back into this playoff battle, which they really shouldn't be, as they were leading the way earlier in the season. But losers of 5 of their 6 will do that to you. New England Revolution, winners of 5 of their last 6, also on 45 points. The Columbus Crew, 2 points behind that group on 43 points. And the New York Red Bull, not doing much to keep their chances alive, but certainly fighting for their lives on 41 points. The Toronto FC, with a game at hand on 40 points, just 1 point out of that playoff position. The Philadelphia Union on 38 points, just 3 points out of that position. And then you go back to the Houston Dynamo. Odds are not relegated, but eliminated from the playoffs at this point on 36 points. The Chicago Fire on 31 points, and the Montreal Impact on 24 points. And certainly propping up the table. Moving on to the Western Conference, we have the LA Galaxy having stormed ahead and leading the way currently, or drawn with the Seattle Sounders. They are winners of 4 of their last 6. They're 4 wins and 2 draws in their last 6. They are on 57 points and leading the Supporter Shields battle at this moment. Seattle Sounders even on points, but behind a goal differential. They are on 57 points as well. Winners of 4 of their last 6, but they are 4 wins, 2 losses in their last 6, where the Galaxy are 4 wins and 2 draws. Real Salt Lake in third place, fallen out of this battle for the top spot overall on 49 points. FC Dallas on 48 points. And then this week's team to man the 5th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference, the Vancouver Whitecaps on 40 points. Ben, I think between here and the end of the season, these guys are going to play it down to the wire between the Whitecaps and the Portland Timbers. Portland in 6th place currently on 39 points. Then we go back to teams that are probably not going to make it in the Colorado Rapids on 32 points, the San Jose Earthquakes on 29 points, and Chivas, losers of 6 straight on 24 points. So currently top goal scorer right now in the league, Bradley Wright Phillips, still on 24 goals. Dominic Dwyer for Kansas City on 20, and Roy Keane on the LA Galaxy, also tied with Zardis for 16 goals each. They have both scored 25% of the team's goals overall. 5th place in goal scoring for the league is Eric Torres, tied with Obafemi Martins from Seattle on 15 goals as well. And then we round out the top 10 with Lee Wen, Chris Wondolowski, Juan Plata, and Clint Dempsey, all on 13 goals each. So we've got some tight races here, Ben, in MLS. Especially this Eastern Conference race is second to none, Ben. You can even start to bring I don't think you can bring the Revolution into this group, but I think Sporting KC is really starting to fall back. 45 points. The Columbus Crew 2 points behind them. The Red Bull 2 points behind them. Toronto 1 point behind them, and Philly 2 points behind them. And then if you even want to go that further back, even the Houston Dynamo, I guess, aren't truly out of it at 36 points. I believe we have about 4 or 5 matches left to play in the season. Ben, for me, this is almost as exciting as the relegation match or the relegation battle you see every year. And I wish there was relegation in MLS, but I see basically 1, 2, 3. I see 4 teams playing for 2 playoff spots in the Eastern Conference, Ben, at this point. And if you want to count Sporting KC, even though they're currently sitting in second place, certainly having a difficult time. Sir Bob's pointing out in the chat that we have the Revolution Toronto FC on the 25th. I wouldn't be happy about that match, Sir Bob. Just let's go into it real quick, Ben. We have a few minutes. I think you don't mind, right? You don't mind us?
That's fine.
All right. So I'm just going to go in and load up the Toronto FC schedule for the rest of the season. Here, if I can, let me see if I can get all their fixtures here loaded from here to the end of the season quickly. To close it out, Toronto has the LA Galaxy on the road. Then they come home to the Dynamo. They go on the road to the Red Bull, which is certainly probably a more important match than that Revolution match on the 25th. They also have an easy one against Toronto FC. So, I think let me just I'm going to get into this here real quick. And yes, definitely been on that one. So, they've got a tough road ahead. Getting the Galaxy on the road, getting the Red Bull on the road, getting the Revolution on the road. I think Toronto definitely has 2 matches that they can win at home in terms of the Houston Dynamo and Montreal Impact. They certainly should beat the Montreal Impact. But I think they're going to have some tough times against the LA Galaxy, who's really red hot right now. The Red Bull in league is looking in form. I'm going to go into their schedule next, and the Revolution are certainly on fire. They're coming up against 2 very, very tough teams. And I think, and like Sir Bob's saying in the chat, I certainly think they can beat Houston and Montreal at home. Beating the Revolution on the road is going to be a tall task, I think, Sir Bob. So I'm going to get into the Red Bull fixtures here quickly, and then I think the only team that I'm missing after Toronto and the Red Bull is probably, I think it was the Columbus Crew fixtures, which I'll go into next. But the Red Bull have a slew of home matches left. They are at home to Dynamo, at home to Toronto, at home to Columbus, and then they close out on the road to a stumbling Sporting KC team. I like the Red Bull's chances. They beat Sporting KC a couple weeks ago at home. The Columbus Crew they're going to get at home, which is a nice place for them to play. They're going to get Toronto FC at home, which I think is going to be certainly one of the premier matches to watch on the 11th. And I think the Red Bull is going to beat the Dynamo as well. I'm sorry. That was the team I was thinking of, not Columbus. It was going to be the Philadelphia Union. So I think the Red Bull have a little bit of an easier road to hoe than Toronto at the moment with the matches to Houston and Montreal. Unfortunately, Toronto has those home matches against Houston and Montreal as well. But Toronto's got to go on the road to the New York Red Bull, and then their other matches that are outside of this grouping are against 2 incredibly hot teams in the Revolution and the LA Galaxy. So let's go take a look at the Philadelphia Union schedule to close out the season here as well. If you'll bear with me 1 second, I'll load it up quickly just to kind of give you an idea here. Okay, so the Philadelphia Union are closing out their season with a home match to the Chicago Fire, which is winnable for them. Their Columbus Crew at home, which is going to be a tough match for them to play. Sporting KC at home, which again, a sputtering Sporting KC team, they might be able to take that one. And on the road to close the season against the Columbus Crew. So they've got a home-on-home with the Crew. So now, just looking at that quickly, the Columbus Crew, I think, become susceptible here. So I'm going to just load that one up real quick. Sorry, Ben. And this is the kind of thing that, when you've got this many teams fighting for just a couple of spots for the playoffs, this is the kind of thing you see. So the Crew have a very, very tough road to hoe here. They've got the Revolution on the road. They've got to go to Philly. They've got to go to the Red Bull, and then they get to play that last match at home to the Union. So they have an incredibly tough road to hoe here. So just as a brief look at the tables here, again, the Columbus Crew in 4th on 43 points, the Red Bull on 41, Toronto FC on 40. Ben, I got to tell you, and the Philadelphia Union on 38. I got to tell you, don't be surprised if you see out of this grouping, you see I think the Red Bull, just looking on the schedule the way it's laid out, I think the Red Bull are through. I think they're going to be through. They have enough home matches, and they have enough matches against teams they should be beating. And I understand, Sir Bob, that you have the game at Toronto. I'm not omitting that. Toronto does have a game at hand, but that game at hand is either to the New England Revolution, who are winners of 5 of their last 6, or the LA Galaxy, who are undefeated in their last 6. And they're both on the road. They're on the road to LA, and they're on the road to to the New England Revolution. They have quality there. The Toronto team has quality. The Revolution might suck, but they're sucking at the tune of winning 5 of their last 6 matches. That's not so bad. I honestly think Toronto can get in, but I think that final playoff spot is going to be between the Columbus Crew and the Philadelphia Union cannibalizing each other, and the Columbus Crew having a tough, having the majority of their matches on the road to close the season. And Toronto, who's going to have tough matches against New England and the LA Galaxy, and then obviously winning their matches against Houston and Montreal. That Toronto-New York Red Bull match, Ben, I think is a big deal, and that match is coming up on I believe, like I said, October 11th, if I remember correctly. But it's going to be interesting to see if this Saturday the Toronto FC gets by the LA Galaxy. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that on that match that Saturday night. So I know Sir Bob's a little fired up here, but the reality is when you look at everybody's schedule, I think the Red Bull are going to go through. I think Columbus, Toronto, and Philly are going to end up fighting for that last spot. And, Ben, the way they're playing right now in their current form, you could see Sporting Kansas City kind of fall into that spot as well. It's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward in their Champions League play, and then beside that, you also have, again, Toronto having Jermaine Defoe coming back healthy, and you have a game at hand, Sir Bob. My understanding is that Toronto has a game at hand, Ben. Is that correct? Can we confirm that? So no, I'm not doubting Toronto's quality. We know that they have quality on the side. The question is can they remain out of that dysfunctional period that they ran through a month and a half ago? Can they maintain their momentum moving forward to stay alive and to snipe that last playoff spot? I don't think they catch the Revolution, Sir Bob, even with the game at hand and they're only 1 point behind. I don't think they catch the Revolution. I think the only way they catch the Revolution, I'm sorry, not the Revolution, the Red Bull. I think the only way they catch the Red Bull is if they beat the Red Bull in New York, which is certainly going to be a tall task. So, Ben, I think next week I'm going to have you get a little more aggressive with the work there. So I just want to mention that Ian is ready to come on. So Ben, if you have any words you want to say as I'm typing Ian a message.
Yeah, we're just going to give a quick shout out to Rochdale. I did have the actual page that we've just given it a second. We're going to read out a little bit of League One. Because Sir Bob's other team, he follows a League One team, Rochdale, which is actually in the division below Blackburn, so they're not too far away. They was just promoted last season, and as it currently stands, they're on 16 points in the playoff zone, in 5th in League One. So they're doing well because they just come back up, and hopefully they can be in the mix to go up again, and hopefully we'll have Rochdale in the Championship and Blackburn in the Premier League next year. Excellent.
So. All right. Without further ado, let me get Ian added into the call here. So, and just bear with me 1 second. I'm very excited to have him come on. Certainly one of my favorites overall on BeIN Sports, just to watch him. He's very, very entertaining, and I'm sure Sir Bob is going to have plenty to add on this. So, joining us now on the air from BeIN Sport, one of my favorite heads on BeIN Sport is Ian Joy. Ian, Joe Usello from Low Limit Football. How you doing tonight?
Joe, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much for that welcome. I think you meant favourite talking heads on television. Is that right?
That is correct. One of my absolute favorite. Yeah. I rushed through it and I didn't get the talking part, but certainly one of my favorites overall. Ian, we normally are a 3-man show here tonight, but my co-host Rob couldn't make it this evening. He's the one that you talked to first through Twitter. He wasn't able to join us tonight because he's a young guy and he still plays football weekly or daily. So he had. In other words, you mean he's got a date tonight? Yeah, he's either got a date or he's mentioned something about applying to colleges. So that'll give you an idea. Good for him. So, and I know he was really looking forward to speaking with you tonight. But I do want to introduce to you live from England my co-host Ben. Ben, say hi to Ian Joy.
Hi, Ian. It's nice to have you on the show.
Yeah, great. Nice to meet you guys.
So, Ian, I want to start you off with the first question that I've asked everyone from BeIN Sport that's come on here. It's one of my favorite questions. So far, we've had from BeIN Sport, we've had George DeMatteis, we've had Jeremy St. Louis, we've had the immortal Ray Hudson, and now you're joining us. So I'm very excited, as my TV is always on BeIN Sport. My question to you is, who's your favorite person to work with at BeIN Sport?
My favorite person to work with at BeIN Sport? That's a great question. I think, obviously, I don't work with Ray one-on-one too many times outside of the locker room show, even though he's just a wonderful human being away from the screens, behind the scenes. He's just an absolute gentleman. He's a great guy. And what you hear on your televisions is what you get from Ray Hudson behind the camera. So he's an absolute gem. But my favourite person has to be Kay Murray. She's just brilliant. She's great on air. She's such a knowledgeable football character as well, and just brilliant. She's such a pleasure to work with.
I've got to tell you, Ian, Kay Murray, I'm going to be pursuing her coming on this show next, because she is the only two-time winner of that question. Believe it or not. And,
I can imagine.
And I know she's a big Madridista, and she's a big Myrtlesboro fan, which we probably should have efforted to have her on this week as well with the shootout that happened this weekend with Liverpool. But I'm sure she would have had plenty to say about it. So, but it's nice to hear. I also hear from all the other folks that we've had on and talked to that the crew there is just it's so together, and everyone has a lot of fun, and everyone really enjoys it. And I bet you'd echo the same sentiments.
Yeah, absolutely. I think last year I built up an unbelievable partnership with Ross Dyer through our commentary team, and then also on air for the Express Extra at the weekends. Obviously an English lad that's quite familiar with Sky Sports and ESPN and Fox as well. He's just recently left BeIN Sports and has joined ESPN and Fox now. So great news from him personally. So that was a great relationship from me. But everybody else inside BeIN Sports, the team that we have on the English in particular, we are so together. Everybody looks after each other, and there's no jealousy involved, which I can only imagine happens in television networks around the United States. Everybody's got each other's back, and we all share the same passion. We all love football, everything about it, and because of all the tremendous rights that we have at BeIN Sports, we have Italian football, the French football, and of course the Spanish football. Everybody just can't get enough of it. So it's a great team to work for, and I could have picked any one of 10 people as the most enjoyable person to work for, but because I work so closely with Kay, I've got to go for her.
Excellent. I'm going to throw you over to Ben, because I know Ben's going to mention a couple things and start us off with a couple questions for you. So Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, hi Ian. Just a random question really to start. I just wondered if you could tell us what it was like to be in the youth academy at Man United in your early teens.
Yeah, it was a special moment for me, obviously, as a young player growing up. I was born in the United States and then moved over to the UK when I was 2 years old, hence the Scottish accent. Grew up in Scotland, and at that stage you could go and play for any team around the UK. There was no restrictions as a youth player as to where you could go and play. So I was fortunate to go to West Ham, Blackburn Rovers, and a few great Premier League clubs at that time. But Manchester United was on an absolute other planet. It was a special feeling. Being from Scotland, every school holiday I would go down for 6 or 7 days. They put you in a hotel and give you the best of foods and let you train around the first team and give you a taste of what Manchester United means to the first team players and what it means to the fans as well. So it was a special feeling, and of course with Sir Alex being a Scotsman, it was something that I'll never ever forget, and something you can only experience if you're in that moment. He's just a brilliant coach, and he knew how to look after every single player all the way down to the youth level. And I wish I had more time. Now, obviously, going as a professional, I realised I wasn't going to make the grade at Manchester United, so I stepped away from the youth scene and went to Tranmere Rovers. But it was great. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Just to say to you, Ian, while we got on the air, we have an interactive chat that goes on whilst we're doing the interview and whilst we do the show. So there's actually one of our listeners, one of our regular listeners, Sir Bob, would like to say hello to you from Canada. So Bob's listening to you now.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much, Bob. And of course, we've got so many great Canadian followers who watch BeIN Sports. thick and thin. They're brilliant followers. They love their football, so passionate as well. And I was fortunate enough to play with a couple of Canadians when I was at St. Pauli in Germany, and one of them is still my very best friend. He's from Montreal, so I know how passionate they love the game.
Just another question, Ian, just on the Scottish national team, actually. I'm a Blackburn Rovers fan, so a big Jordan Rhodes fan, and he hasn't really kind of broke through, really had much of a chance, hasn't really done too much for the Scottish national team. I'm just wondering what you think of him, Ian. Is he someone you'd like to see up front for the Scottish national team a lot?
He's got a great reputation, that's for sure. I think one of the biggest problems you have is when you're not consistent for your club team. It's very difficult now to be favourable to Gordon Strachan's plans, because he has a lot of talented people to choose from now, Gordon Strachan, and there is now starting to be that competition for the national team, especially up front, where they've got some good players, Fletcher, and now Martin. Of course, Naismith and Maloney will always be there or thereabouts. But he's a good player. He's got every opportunity. There's no question about that. So I think Scottish national team are on the right path, and with having so many players fighting for positions within the squad, it can only be good for the Scottish national team going forward.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to hand you back over to Joe. I believe he's got a few more questions here.
Cheers, Ben.
I do. I wanted to basically ask you a question that came up as a result of our chat. We were talking about the biggest matches coming up this weekend. Obviously, we've got Champions League, we've got Europa League, we've got some big stuff going on there. But my focus was really in the leagues. On this show, we cover all 5 leagues individually. And I made the brave boast that the match of this weekend is the Juve-Roma match coming up on, I believe, on Saturday. And that was vehemently argued by Sir Bob in the chat, saying that the Chelsea-Arsenal match was a bigger match this weekend. So my question to you, Ian, is which match do you consider to be bigger this weekend, the Juve-Roma match or the Arsenal-Chelsea match?
Well, I mean, they're both so different, but yet both so incredibly big. That's a tough one, for sure. I think we're working so closely with Italian football. There's no bigger match this weekend than Juventus versus Roma, simply down to the fact that this game could essentially already decide the title. If Juventus get the victory there, it might be difficult for Roma to fight the points back throughout the course of the campaign. And with both teams rarely conceding goals, Juve have still not conceded a goal yet, and Roma have only conceded 1 from the 5 games they've played so far. It's very, very evenly matched, and many people are saying that Roma are better than what they were last year. So for me, it's going to be a very, very close matchup. Juventus and Roma both in Champions League this week is going to be interesting, because there will be some tired legs, I'm sure, when it comes to the weekend. But it's so hard to say that that's going to be bigger than the Chelsea-Arsenal game. It's such a historic derby match, and in the Premiership, there's no question that everybody's eyes are going to be on that.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it here. I thought that, like you had said, that the Roma-Juve match could really give one team a leg up on winning the Scudetto this year, where with the English Premier League we have a situation, or the Barclays Premier League, we have a situation where it could affect the overall championship, but you've got so many teams fighting for it that it's not the end all be all. I think in Italy we're looking at Roma and Juve, and everyone else is a few steps down the ladder. But in England, we're looking at a situation where we've got 3, 4, even 5 teams that could be considered capable of winning the Premier League, don't you think?
Well, I think you're 100% spot on about Italy. You know, those 2 teams are the only 2 teams that really can compete for the title as far as I'm concerned. They are the best teams in the league. They've got the best coaches, and Allegri's doing a great job already after taking over from Conte at Juve. But I think Roma under Rudy Garcia are improving every game. They're getting better and better. The Premiership is much more difficult and much more complicated, because a lot of teams are surprised already this year. Southampton doing ever so well. I think they're sitting in 2nd place now in the Premiership under Ronald Koeman, and nobody expected that to happen. Arsenal obviously not doing as well as everybody would have expected, so you'd have to say that Chelsea and Manchester City are still the favourites for the title race at the end of the year. I don't think anybody else comes close to those 2, simply down to the fact that they spend so much money. They've got the best squad of players, not just the 11, but the 24 players or above who are in their squads. I don't see any teams competing with Chelsea and Manchester City for the title this year.
Okay. I want to bring you back to BeIN Sport for a second. I like I said, I keep the TV on BeIN Sport, and I had you on the television tonight, and one of the panelists tonight on the Locker Room was Christian Vieri. And Ben and I and Rob as well, we always talk about what it's like to work with superstars like that. I think about a month and a half or 2 months ago, back when we were in the middle of the transfer window, it was mentioned that Christian Vieri and Ruud Gullit, both at one point in time, were the most expensive players in the world when they were transferred. What's it like to work with superstars like Vieri and Ruud Gullit?
I'm really blessed to be in this position to work so closely with so many talented people, and it's not just the big names, it's also the talented people that BeIN Sport already possess in the ranks. There's a lot of great professionals there who are very good at their job, but the special part of working in television and media in general, as you guys already know, is that you do get to bump into some incredibly big names from the footballing world who, as children, we used to watch on the television. I mean, we bowed down to these people. So meeting Christian Vieri for the first time was certainly nerve-wracking, but great character, just a wonderful human being. He's so funny. I think he enjoys working so closely with myself and with Ray Hudson, because he feels like he's back in the dressing room with the boys having a great laugh. So you start to see a lot of that coming out on the locker room on a Monday night. But Ruud Gullit, great personality. He's obviously a big character as well. He's such a laugh behind the scenes, and he comes across very serious on camera, and obviously he has to protect his image in certain ways, but away from the camera he's just a big kid, which is great to see. I play a bit of golf with him when he comes over to Miami, but I've met so many since I've stopped playing the game. It really has been incredible, and I have to admit, I pinch myself now and again just to realise how lucky I am to be in this position working with so many footballing greats.
Ben, I'm going to throw it back over to you. I know you still have a few more questions for Ian.
Yeah, Ian, we've done Italy and we've done England. One of the countries that seems to come up a lot, and obviously a lot of talk in the transfer window, is La Liga and Spain and Real Madrid and Barcelona. What's your opinion on who do you think is going to win La Liga? Who's the better team for you?
Great question. It's a really tough one, Ben. I think when you look at the challenge for the title last year, we got one of the most exciting races towards the end of the season with Atletico surprising everybody. And then obviously under Simeone, he's managed to still keep this team competing at the top of the table, you know, with losing some big players like Diego Costa and Courtois. You know, it's a completely different squad of players. It's difficult to look past Barcelona right now, as far as I'm concerned. They're scoring goals. They are not conceding goals. Played 6 already, haven't conceded 1 goal. And I think they scored 17 or 18 goals already. So they're flying high. And they've got such a squad of players that are firing high with confidence right now. When you think the fact that Luis Suarez is still to come into this squad, it really is scary to think about. Real Madrid, we talked about this on the locker room show over here in the States tonight. It's a great team who are playing very well right now. They're scoring more goals than Barcelona, and they look so dangerous going forward. It really is easy on the eye to watch that team play football every weekend. But they concede too many goals, Real Madrid. They make too many mistakes defensively. They just switch off at the vital moment, as you guys both know. I don't see anybody challenging Real Madrid and Barcelona for the top 2 places in La Liga, and my money's on Barcelona to run away with it this year.
Okay. Kind of leads me on to the next question. Obviously, like you just said, Real Madrid and Barcelona, and we had a few more into the mix, but if you had to pick a winner of the Champions League, I know it's early, and obviously there's a lot of big teams and a lot of teams doing well, but if I pushed you to pick one now, who would you go with and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. First of all, both of you have got to give me your opinion on who you think is going to win it.
Ben, I'll let you go first.
Put the pressure straight away. I must admit, for me, it was quite close at the beginning of the Champions League. I did think it'd be Real Madrid or Bayern Munich, but after I did a little bit more look into it, I kind of agreed. I thought Bayern Munich a bit more of a unit. I think they defend better as a team, and I just think there's just so much quality throughout the Bayern team that I would have took Bayern, or albeit the bookies taking Real Madrid. But now you've got Barcelona in it, and you know, everyone's thinking, will the Chelsea team click straight away? And they have as well. So I do think it's a lot tougher now if he's going to make the decision now. But I think I would say Bayern Munich at the moment. I don't know. I'll let you go, Joe. I'm going to take Bayern Munich.
I was going to put in. Sir Bob says he's going. It says ManCity will win it, and Sir Bob is a. Bayern Munich is one of the more complete teams in the world, to say the least. There's no denying that they're good on the back line. They're good in the goal. They're good in the midfield. They've got strikers in Lewandowski. They are solid across the board. It's a tough one, Ian. Like you said, you've got a great side in Bayern, and no one in the world would be surprised if they win it. There is something about this season, though, that wants me to say Barcelona as well. I think Barcelona's done a great job of shoring up their defense. The addition of Ivan Rakitic for that team is going to be an even bigger addition than Luis Suarez. I mean, he's paying dividends for them week in and week out. But I've got to tell you, I think gun to my head, if I had to pick a winner of the Champions League today, I'm going to go with Chelsea. I'm going to take Chelsea. I think Chelsea last year, we saw an incomplete team. And the problem with Chelsea last year was they weren't able to finish. They had nobody to finish. They have got a gem in a finisher now in Diego Costa. Cesc Fabregas has really added to the quality of that side moving forward, almost to the point where people have forgotten that Eden Hazard is kind of having a little bit of a down year. They didn't need to add quality in goal, but they did in Thibaut Courtois, who I think is a better option than Peter Cech, although Peter Cech is certainly world class. I'm going to go Chelsea. So.
Yeah, it's a good pick. I think when you look at Chelsea, obviously it's been a little bit of a sloppy start having that draw against Schalke. It was an unsurprising result. I thought Schalke played very well, but they do have a very good squad of players that Chelsea have put together now. I think Mourinho is the right man to lead this team into success. But I'm going to go with Ben. I think Bayern Munich have the most complete squad of players right now. They're proving it in the Bundesliga already. They're off to the races. They've been unbelievable. They've added a few players in the off-season that have made the biggest of differences. I mean, Xabi Alonso, with his experience, he's already breaking records with the amount of passes and contacts he's having on the ball. And they really needed that, Bayern Munich, to improve. Goal scoring wise, I still think there's a lot to work on with Lewandowski up front. When you have Thomas Müller, you can rely on him to score you goals. But Bayern Munich, for them to be so successful and run away with the Champions League, they need to have that Diego Costa goal-scoring record. They don't have it yet with Lewandowski, but he can switch it on, and I'm pretty sure that he will do. So I'm going to go with Ben here. I think that Bayern Munich have got the most complete squad of players. They seem to have started well. It was obviously a very important win for them in the first game against Manchester City. Albeit they waited till the very end of the game. And to Sir Bob, I've got to tell you, that match against Roma is going to be a very interesting one because Roma know how to get results, and I expect it to be a very close game tomorrow.
I agree. You know, in terms of the Bayern Munich one, I personally think that last year they had a wonderful opportunity to win the Champions League last year, but because they solidified or locked up the Bundesliga so early in the season. I mean, I think they locked it up late February, that it almost seemed like they turned a switch off and they were never able to turn it back on. Do you think, Ian, or do you agree with me, first of all, that they did something like that, and do you think that it kind of hurts them to lock up the league so early?
Well, it is pretty dangerous. If you remember with Bayern Munich last year, they started to tinker with the lineup after they had won the title. Mm-hmm. So they started to leave certain players who were on the top of their game, scoring goals, out of the team for league matches and resting them for the Champions League. And it's sometimes a big mistake to do that with players who are playing so well, with so much confidence, scoring so many goals or creating so many chances. You know, Bayern Munich have the best of the players around the world right now with an incredible squad of players. But players want to play week in and week out. It doesn't matter. They don't want too many rests. They want to be playing week in and week out so that they continue scoring goals and continue that confidence. I don't think that they underestimated Real Madrid so much last year. I think they knew they were coming up against a team that was fighting very hard to win La Decima, the 10th title. But Real Madrid have waited a long time for that. So the result that surprised me most was obviously Bayern Munich at home getting smashed by Real Madrid. And I think they've learned from their lessons. After what happened last year, they took their foot off the gas and they were absolutely punished by the better team over the two games with Real Madrid. I don't think that's going to happen this year.
No. And Sir Bob would like to mention that he can guarantee that Man United will not win the Champions League this year.
I think anybody can guarantee that, right?
So
I'm just sorry, Joe.
Yes.
Just while we're talking about the Champions League, I know Joe would never say it, but one of my dark horses, Ian. I don't know whether you agree, but I've been saying this last year or so. I think Juventus have got a decent chance. I definitely think they're dark horses. They're such a strong team, really big, really strong, good in the air, and I do think that a lot of teams are going to have trouble against Juventus this year, and I think they're going to go quite deep this year.
Massively. I mean, Juventus are Ray Hudson's dark horse to go far in the tournament. They've still to concede a goal in Serie A. They're in incredibly good form. Maybe not scoring as many goals as they would have liked to have done already. But they are a team that shored up their defence. Champions League is definitely important to them this year because they've been knocked out of the tournament early stages, and it's not good for a club like Juventus to be going through that situation again. There's a lot of pressure from their fans to be more successful. Carlos Tevez is outstanding so far this year. I think he's got 4 or 5 goals already in the league, and they've still got to bring Pirlo back into the team. Is he going to get back into that squad? That's yet to be seen because there's so many players playing well with Pogba and Vidal. That's a great dark horse to choose. I've got one of my own though. Zenit St. Petersburg have really impressed me so far. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I really do think they can get to the knockout stages and cause a lot of problems. And Villas-Boas has done a tremendous job with them so far. And Zenit, of course, surprised a few people in their first game already, having won in Portugal.
That is true. They are. It's tough to call them a dark horse because they do have a lot of quality on that side.
Yeah.
But certainly to go into Portugal and win is quite impressive, and it shows you a team that is really playing their best football right now, and they could shake the tree a little bit and startle somebody on their way into the knockout stages. I would agree with you 100%. I'm gonna ask you a quick question about the World Cup now that we're coming up on the break. What were your thoughts? I know you were over in Rio for some time covering the World Cup for BeIN Sport. Give me your overall impression. I know it's a few months behind us now, but I followed you doing your coverage there, tremendously. What were your thoughts or your impressions on this year's World Cup and actually being in the middle of it in Rio? What are your thoughts on that?
It was a tremendous experience to go down there. If you're a fan down in Brazil, it would have been just a special occasion. For me, working down there, getting to see the big games, getting to meet some big people down there and see the action up front by my own eyes was something very, very special. And I was so fortunate I got the opportunity to go down there with BeIN Sports, and we had a terrific show with so many wonderful talents coming on and big names who were on our show. It was a great experience, but the World Cup did not disappoint down in Brazil. There was so many great games. There was a lot of goals that we've seen. Obviously, the group stages was record-breaking, and it took my breath away. It really did. Rio, in particular, where I was based throughout the whole tournament, everybody questioned whether or not security was going to be an issue. I never seen one issue the whole time I was there. The atmosphere in the city was tremendous. I was fortunate enough to go and watch a couple of games. I went to watch Spain versus Chile in the group game when Chile smashed them. It was a great game. And then I got to the quarter-final to watch France versus Germany, which wasn't such a great game, but Germany coming out obviously victorious in the end. It was a great experience. I sat right in front of Zico at that match, and all the world names just came out to watch this tournament. It's the greatest event in the world, and I was so fortunate to be there in person and experience it. And I recommend it to everybody. Everybody's questioning about Russia and Qatar and all the situations. To go and experience the World Cup is something everybody should have on their bucket list.
And believe me, I do. I was arguing with my wife when they came out with the draw for Russia and Qatar. I basically looked at her and said, Brazil, Moscow, or Qatar. Pick one because we're going to one of them. So, that's it. So,
where did she choose?
She didn't choose any yet, and I missed Brazil. So, there's actually a piece of me that would like to go see Qatar just to go see the Middle East and that area of the world. But there is certainly a big part of me that would love to go see Russia and go to Moscow and go to St. Petersburg and see.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, I was fortunate enough when I was 18 years old to play in the Youth Olympics in Moscow, and obviously it's changed a lot since then. And we've got one of my very closest friends from football, Yura Movsisyan, playing for Spartak Moscow, and already the preparation has begun to turn Moscow and Russia in general into a terrific situation for the World Cup to be held. And already the stadiums are being built. I've already seen Spartak's new stadium. It's unbelievable. And we know that there's a lot of money in Russia, so we know it's going to be a tremendous tournament.
Sure, and I think people are worried about the politics of the world, and sometimes you have to leave the politics behind and look at the people and look at the countries and the cities for the beauties that they have. I mean, I'm sure there's people in Russia that think that this place is terrible, and obviously the United States certainly isn't. So I think I think it would be great to go over and see something like that there. So Ben, I'm going to throw it over to you, and apparently our co-host Rob is available, so I'm going to see if he'll join us while Ben's asking a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go and take it. Ian, just going back to domestic football. Obviously, unfortunately for my sins, I'm a Blackburn Rovers fan. Obviously, Joe's a Juventus fan. Yeah, so it's fun. I was just wondering what domestic teams you follow, if any.
Well, obviously, I have a little bit of sympathy for you supporting Blackburn Rovers at this moment in time. They're stuck down in the Championship, which is one of the most difficult leagues for you guys to get out of. But I have a soft spot for Blackburn Rovers because my father actually played for them back in the 60s and 70s. He was coming up in the lower leagues with Blackburn Rovers and learnt his trade there. So I have a soft spot for Blackburn. And of course, as I was a kid growing up in the UK, Alan Shearer was a hero to everybody when he was playing for Kenny there. So great club. Wonderful football club, and it's a shame to see them stuck in the Championship right now. They deserve to be back up if they can start to get things right behind the scenes. But for me personally, having played football and played for many clubs, St. Pauli is always so close to my heart. It's a team that I follow dearly, not just for on the field, but off the field, politically as well. It's just a wonderful club, and really excited to go back there in a couple of weeks. I'm playing in a testimonial game, so I'm excited to go back and see the guys. They're stuck in the second Bundesliga right now, so I follow them closely in the second league. I like to watch Manchester United, obviously. My father, again, Manchester lad, and my grandfather used to sell programmes in the car park at Old Trafford, so that was great. And back home in Scotland, I used to go and watch Glasgow Rangers. They were very successful back in the day, growing up with Ali McCoist and Mark Hateley and all those guys. I went to see a lot of Champions League games with my father, and seen Paul Gascoigne play some tremendous games for Glasgow Rangers. So great experience as a kid. I'm not a Glasgow Rangers fan, but I absolutely loved the Champions League experience as well. So yeah, I mean, Scottish football's changed a lot over the years, so it's difficult to pick a team to follow right now with Celtic running away with the league year in, year out. So my team, St. Pauli, and of course Manchester United.
Ian, before we go any further, our good friend and co-host, who is apparently back from his date, Roberto Rojas, is in. So Rob, I want you to say hi to Ian Joy.
Hi, Ian Joy. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How was the date?
It was all right.
So,
good job.
I wanna bring it back. I'm sure Rob has a couple of questions. I'm gonna let him get organized as he just got in. I want to bring you back to MLS, Ian. I want to ask you a couple of things about the Portland Timbers. First of all, do you have a status on Will Johnson? I know he suffered a pretty bad injury over the weekend. What's his status? Have you heard?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it was a horrific injury, and it was my wife, Nicole, who informed me that he'd had the leg break up in Toronto. I haven't heard anything as an update, but I have been in contact with him, obviously, through text message, and his wife as well through text message. But there's no real update other than we know he was getting operated on up in Toronto, and everything seemed to have gone smoothly. But I really don't have much more information than that. I'm pretty sure he'll reach out to me as soon as he has a second, because things will be a little bit crazy and hectic for him right now. But desperately disappointed for him. He's another one of my closest friends from our time at Real Salt Lake, and then obviously I was captain of the Timbers, and then he went on to captain the Timbers. So great history and great friendship, me and him together. So I'm desperately disappointed. He's a big loss for them.
Oh, absolutely. He was certainly playing well for them, and if you'd pass along to us that
Yep.
it would be great if he could,
absolutely,
you get well soon. The other question I want to ask you about the Portland Timbers in general. This is their first year in the CONCACAF Champions League, which they're riding high right now. They're leading their league, or they're leading their group, scoring goal after goal. My question to you is, what are your thoughts on their success so far, their first time in a big international competition?
I think it's great to see. I mean, maybe it's affecting their league play so far, even though I think they have played well in Major League Soccer this year. They haven't got the results that they got last year under Caleb Porter, who incidentally is a terrific coach and really has inspired a lot of people around the United States to become a soccer coach and shoot for the top with MLS. He's coming with some great ideas. He's put together a terrific squad of players, and Portland Timbers are starting to look really dangerous. And maybe over the next 2 or 3 years, we could see Portland Timbers getting the championship that they deserve. The fans are terrific. Unfortunately, the players haven't won as many games this year as they would have liked to have done. But absolutely right. I mean, when you play in CONCACAF championships, it's an important tournament to represent the United States and Major League Soccer. And maybe their attention's been turned more to having success in that competition, because Major League Soccer is yet to have that winner in that tournament. I know Real Salt Lake came close shortly after they won 2009-2010 with a terrific squad of players that they had under Jason Kreis. So I see a lot of similarities between Jason Kreis and Caleb Porter, two young coaches, two die-hard football fans who love the game, who live the game. And I think Caleb Porter can do a great job with this Portland Timbers side. The future looks bright for the Timbers.
Yeah, are they going to be able to hold off the Vancouver Whitecaps? Because it seems like weekly they're just trading places in and out of this playoff position.
Yeah, I mean, it's very close, isn't it? Of course, it was a disappointing performance. Well, maybe not the performance, but result, certainly against Toronto. But it's always difficult to pick yourself up for that match, especially when Will Johnson's injury happened seconds into the kickoff. And Toronto obviously needed that victory. So the Timbers, find themselves trading places with the Whitecaps, who got an important victory themselves. And the Whitecaps are a tricky team to play against. I really think they are. And Real Salt Lake had a tough time at the weekend against them. I know Real Salt Lake very closely, follow them, being one of my former teams. And there is a never say die attitude when it comes to the Vancouver Whitecaps, their fans, and the club in general. And for me, Robbo, the coach there, Carl Robinson, is just a terrific coach as well, and he's got a decent squad of players there, so it's going to be close to see who makes it into that final spot for the playoffs.
Okay, I'm gonna throw you over to Rob, because I know he has a question. So Rob, go ahead. I know you've been dying to get in.
Hi, Ian. Obviously, when you went to the World Cup in Brazil, you saw how significant a performance the United States had, obviously going out of the group of death with Germany, Portugal, and Ghana. And my question to you is, what do you think is your opinion on the future for United States soccer, the national team, the MLS, etc.? What do you think can happen in the next 4 years with Jurgen Klinsmann all the way leading up to Russia?
It's a tricky one with the quality of players that the United States have in their squad. Jurgen Klinsmann certainly is the right man, as far as I'm concerned, to lead this team to success. It takes a lot of time in the United States to be able to build a squad that's capable of achieving quarter-final, semi-final places at the World Cup. They play a lot of games, they have a lot of training camps, and a lot of work is put into making this squad of players a success. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on Jurgen Klinsmann to achieve success quickly. Now, was it a success at the World Cup? Yeah, you'd have to say it was. I mean, it was a difficult match for them against Belgium, and Tim Howard was outstanding. They could have got beaten 5 or 6-0 in that match, but they didn't. They showed great determination, and obviously the character that is in the United States players it's unbelievable. I don't think any other national team has the same character, the same passion that the United States players have for representing that badge and for representing the United States. I mean, I'm pretty sure the atmosphere back in the United States was incredible watching these games. But I think now that Jurgen Klinsmann's had the World Cup, he's going to turn to the youth generation, the next generation of players. Maybe it's not going to be in 4 years' time. Maybe we're going to have to be patient and see success in 8 years' time for the US national team. They need to build. The youth generation is not as good as it could be. I know there's a lot of players out there in the United States who are excellent footballers. Are they being found? Are they getting the best opportunity to play at the highest level? it certainly looks that way with Major League Soccer expanding so much. I think a lot of players need to get European experience to become world-class players. But I still think that Major League Soccer deserves a lot of credit for creating what has been a very good, 20 years or 15 years for success with the national team. So the future's bright, but it's going to be a long process, and the fans are going to have to be patient.
Just to follow up on that question, do you believe in a semi-final appearance of the United States in a World Cup?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I believe 100%. Do I believe that they can win it? No, I don't think they can win it so easily. If they have a little bit of luck and fortune, they can certainly make it to the final. But I think a semi-final place is a lot more realistic with the talented players that they have in the squad already, and probably what the next generation is going to bring, because 4 years is a long time away. There's a lot of experienced players who were in that World Cup squad this year who won't be in the next World Cup. But I think the United States, just simply down to the way they represent the country, can achieve great things. As we've seen against Belgium, they made a lot of people smile throughout the World Cup. If they can add a few talented players in there, a little bit more world-class quality, the United States can certainly achieve a semi-final place.
Yeah, it would be great to, at least my generation, when my kids are watching these idols in 20, 30 years' time, that they can see those players.
It's been unbelievable to watch the process. I mean, I was fortunate enough to obviously represent the United States growing up at the youth level. So I got to see what it was like at the under-17, under-18, under-20, under-23 level. And the work that the United States Federation put in to US soccer is unbelievable. There's a lot of money invested. A lot of players get their opportunity to shine. But I still think there's more. We can do a lot more. I know Major League Soccer is now helping out with the academies, which is terrific. That needed to happen. And the next step is for these young players, starting from very young ages, playing the game the right way, teaching the players the correct way. There's a lot of coaches in the United States coaching young players who shouldn't be coaching young players. There needs to be better quality coaches from a very early age at club football all the way through to the national team. And they're starting to recognise that under Jurgen Klinsmann, because he came through the German structure, which is, for me, the best one.
All right. I will now lead it up to Ben, if he has any questions.
Yeah, Ian, we've got a question from our chat. Bob wants to ask you if you think that George Best was the best ever Manchester United player, ever.
Yeah, Bestie for me was one of the best that ever played the game, full stop. And obviously I didn't get a chance to see him live. I obviously wasn't born during his era, but he was, from the videos that I've seen, one of the most talented footballers I ever set eye on. He was just a special talent. The way he touched the ball, the way he moved, I mean, it was poetic, and it was such a great opportunity for me growing up to watch videos with my father being such a huge fan of George Best. And I was really fortunate to have that in my life, because George Best inspired me to want to be a talented footballer and to want to be a little bit of a greedy goal scorer, and also to be just that character, that gentleman on the field as well. And working so closely with Ray Hudson here, I got to find out a few stories about George Best and his time, and obviously Rodney Marsh has been around the building at BeIN Sports as well, and he shares a lot of his stories on Twitter about Bestie. I mean, they had a tremendous relationship together. So the stories from George Best leads me to believe that he was one of the best that ever played the game. So yeah, I mean, for Manchester United, there's no question in my opinion.
Okay, thank you very much. Ian, just back to national football. We haven't actually asked this to anyone really. I'm quite intrigued for your view. For me, doesn't possibly get talked about enough, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about England. Really, I mean, obviously watching the World Cup. Born, bred in England. Bleed red and white. To me, where do you think it is going wrong for England? I mean, I'm kind of the opinion that that possibly we need a change in management. Would be the first thing I would do, but obviously it's a new wave of talent. We didn't really get anything done with the golden generation. I just wonder what your opinion was and what you think they should do going forward, and if there's any positive to look forward for the England fans that are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot to look forward to for English national team. There always is going to be a lot to look forward to for the English national team. Disappointment, I'm sure, for every English fan out there watching the World Cup, because maybe the estimation of how far they could go in the tournament wasn't as high as what everybody expected it to be in previous tournaments. So there wasn't as much pressure, from what I noticed when I was back in the UK, on the national team to go far in the tournament. So that was interesting to see, and maybe it's down to the fact that he had a very young squad of players go over to Brazil and compete. I think this team that Roy Hodgson has is a young squad of players who have come through the right way in England. They've learned the game through academies in England, which have obviously been put in place over the last 20 years to produce the best quality young English talent. The Premier League is now starting to recognise that. We're seeing big money changing hands for players in the Premiership, especially English players, which is great to see, and that's so important for the national team, that the English players are playing in their own domestic league at the highest level, and I want to see a lot more of that, with younger players getting an opportunity to play. But the future is certainly bright. I mean, if you look at the young youth level of English national team, I think it was the under-18s who had a great deal of success over the last year. They won the tournament. I think it was European Championships. I'm not sure. It might have been the World Championships. They were very good, and there's a lot of talent coming through that squad of players. And great players who have represented England over the generations are now coaching the youth level, and we're starting to see a lot more success with those players leading into the national team. It wasn't such a major disappointment as far as I'm concerned. I thought some of their performances was very good. Yes, they didn't play well in all 3 games, but I thought they were good in a couple of the games that they played, and there's a lot to build on with that English national team, and I think he'll get another opportunity in the Euros.
Do you sorry, just a follow-on one. Do you think Roy Hodgson's the right man for the job? I just kind of feel like, I mean, obviously he's a decent manager, and I wasn't second guessing him at the beginning, but it just seemed for me that he didn't quite have as much experience as Capello, and if you're gonna, why change it really? I just wonder what your opinion was on Hodgson as a national manager, and whether you think he's the right man for it.
I do. Obviously, it's a very difficult job for anybody who comes in to be the head coach, obviously, the manager of the English national team, because there's so much pressure there. But I think when you look at experience, there's few who are more experienced than Roy Hodgson. I mean, he's been terrific all the way back to his club teams and the success that he's had all the way through the leagues. He's got tremendous experience all over the world. He knows the world's game inside out. As far as international, of course, he did well with Switzerland. I think he changed their national team to becoming more successful and helped build what has become a very good Swiss league and also Swiss national team. But I think he's going to get his opportunity in the Euros. I don't think there's too much pressure on that. I mean, England are too good not to qualify for the Euros this time out. I think they'll definitely make that happen. But I think that he is under so much pressure week in and week out, or should I say month in, month out, when he gets his team together. The media in England is so terrible to deal with, because the pressure they put on their national team to have success always starts with the coach. So if they lose a game, they want him fired. And I'll never ever understand the media in the UK, but obviously they need to sell newspapers and apps or whatever they need to do to try and make money, and that is the way to create a story, by picking on the man who's in charge. Disappointing World Cup, no question about it, but it was a tough group for them to get out of, and I think Roy Hodgson is going to get his opportunity in the Euros to have success.
Okay, sure. I believe Joe's got a couple of questions for you, so I'll pass you back to Joe.
Yeah, Ben.
Cool.
Ian, I just have a couple more questions, and I think we're actually we're done for tonight. We're going to let you off the hook a little early and a little quick, because we're notorious for keeping people on for hours on end. So I do want to keep it back in England. According to the reports in the chat tonight, Alan Pardew will be sacked as early as tomorrow and replaced with David Moyes over at Newcastle. So I just want your thoughts on the season so far at Newcastle. Do you think Pardew deserves to be sacked, and do you think Moyes is the right option?
Wow, I never heard the name David Moyes approached by Newcastle. I'd never heard that thrown into the hat when I heard the rumours he might be sacked. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting one. First and foremost, I don't think that what Ashley did with the media at the weekend, obviously getting caught in a pub saying a comment that he shouldn't have said, was the professional way to do it. Mm-hmm. he doesn't seem to be the most professional owner of a football club, and I can't see that relationship lasting too long with Newcastle United, because those fans they deserve better. They're so passionate about their football club. Alan Pardew's a good coach. Whether he was the man to lead Newcastle to the promised land, I was never ever so sure when I seen that 7-year contract waved in his face. But they have made some really good signings, Newcastle, and it really has surprised me how they've started the season. I think it was the first game against Manchester City where they lost the game, but they actually played some really good football. And the new signings that they had made, I think Remy Cabella played very well in this match, and Riviere came onto the field, or he started the match, he was pretty good. And some of those French guys have been really impressive. But it just doesn't always work out for you when you make so many foreign signings. I mean, Newcastle have made a lot of French signings, we know, and not given too many English players an opportunity to play there when it's such a club that's supported so well by the locals, so many English locals. They love their football club and they want to see players represent that badge with so much passion. And I'm not quite sure that a lot of these foreigners understand what Newcastle Football Club means to the people of Newcastle. So it's difficult to finger point Alan Pardew from this process, but when you don't get results in the Premiership quickly, you're going to be under a lot of pressure, and the pressure's already started for Newcastle United because they're in the bottom three and they haven't won a game yet, so they're really disappointing. I think that you're going to see that change being made at some point. If it happens tomorrow, Mike Ashley's comments were correct and the media got it right. As far as David Moyes is concerned, he's a great coach. I was really disappointed at how Manchester United treated him, even though I was really disappointed with his first season at Manchester United. But I still think there's a lot more to come from David Moyes in the Premiership, and that might just be a match made in heaven.
Right. You know, I had said earlier tonight, with as far as David Moyes is concerned and his time at Manchester United, I said you kind of liken it to the girl who is broken up with the longtime boyfriend. You don't want to be the guy that replaces the longtime boyfriend. You want to be the guy that replaces the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my closest friends said that.
Yeah, see, it's and unfortunately it's very true. And I think he was dealt a bad hand going to Manchester United. And I agree with you. I think he's a very good coach. Just put in the wrong situation, and if the rumors are true that he does go to Newcastle, I think he'll do very, very well. So, So the last question I have for you tonight is more of a personal question. Sure. If I saw correctly on Twitter recently, your wife is expecting again. Is that correct?
Yes, she is expecting. Yes,
Fantastic.
She's 20 weeks now into pregnancy and doing very well.
Wow. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl?
We found out last week that it's going to be a baby girl. I have a baby girl already. She's 8 years old. She's back in Scotland with her mother. So recently married we are, and we've been waiting for this moment for a long time. So very excited for her to arrive.
Fantastic. Congratulations to the whole family.
Thank you.
As a dad of two girls, the only warning that I would give you is that you probably want to stop now because you will be outmanned very quickly.
I already know with the little one now, my 8-year-old's a little crazy, and I'm pretty scared about what the future is going to bring for me, but very close to my kids. I think with my one, even though she lives in Scotland, I'm based in Miami, I get to see her every 2 or 3 months. There's a travel involved, and I get to see her for a week or two, and then in the summer I have her over in Miami for a month, so it's great to spend so much time, and there's no better feeling than family, that's for sure.
Amen. But I did want to ask you about your daughter Madison. I was reading your bio here, and I see that she was born in Hamburg, Germany. Obviously, when you were with FC Pauli, St. Pauli. If she carried dual citizenship, I know I'm an Italian American. I carry dual citizenship. I'm Giuseppe Rossi, just not that good. But if she had the option to play either for the United States or for Germany, which way would you push her and why?
Well, yes, she was. She was born in Germany when I was playing at St. Pauli, which was obviously a special moment in my life. And she's very proud of being born in Germany, especially this World Cup. I got her into the World Cup in a very big way, and she's really fallen for soccer, football. And she played a little bit last year, and she really enjoyed it, but she got hit in the face with a ball and never played again. So it's been about 6 months and she hasn't kicked the ball. So it might be difficult to get her to go back and play soccer again. But she will have the opportunity, yes, with a US passport that she has, and also she has a British passport right now, not a German one. So I think that she would love to represent Germany, though, because she's so passionate about St. Pauli and very passionate with the German national team doing so well in the World Cup.
Yeah. I got to tell you, as an Italian American, I was 10 years old when Italy won the World Cup in '82 with Paolo Rossi and Dino Zoff and all those players. There is nothing like that feeling of national pride. Even though you may not live in the country, even though you may not, you weren't necessarily spent a lot of time in that country. There's a certain feel of heritage. So I'm sure she's very proud of Germany winning the World Cup this year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great feeling as well. And I mean, of course, when you look at the Italian national team having so much success when you were growing up, being Italian, there's very few countries who are more passionate about their national team. That's for sure.
It is true. So, Ian, I want to thank you on behalf of my co-hosts here tonight. I'm sure they'd like to say thank you as well, but just wonderful to have you on and talk football. And obviously we could go for hours on end, but we all have other lives as well, so we'd like to get some rest. So Ben, I didn't know if you had any final words you wanted to mention to Ian.
I think we've about covered it, Ian. It was great to have you on the show, and you answered so many different questions from so many different angles, and it's pardon the pun, but it's been a joy to have you on it.
And Rob,
thank you.
Rob, how about you? Anything else you want to say?
No. Even though I've been only here for a good 24 minutes, it's still nice to hear.
Yeah.
And a good interview.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. And of course, as you can imagine, a lot of people reach out for us to make the effort and come on podcasts or radio shows or magazines. But I know you guys love the game so much, which is why, for me, it's so enjoyable to spend some time with you guys. Next time, I'll make sure I have a 6-pack of beer in front of me so we can go for a few hours.
That sounds perfect. And I was going to say, I'm going to mention to Kay Murray definitely to come on as she is so well liked, and I know that she's been mentioned as very, very knowledgeable, so I'm excited to at least reach out to her. So if you wouldn't mind putting the good word into Kay for us, and maybe Vieri, I can tweet to him in Italian and see if he'll pay attention or not. But again,
no problem.
Thank you. Ben, did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
Yeah, Ian, I just wanted to say thank you for the kind words about Blackburn, because we don't have much to smile about nowadays, so it was nice to hear something nice said about them, really.
Don't worry about it. One of my very good friends who's here in Miami, he's a Blackburn Rovers fan, and we play golf every weekend. Yeah, I know when he comes with an angry face what the result was at the weekend.
So.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and it meant something to me anyway.
Great.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate the time as well, and of course, continue to watch BeIN Sports.
Great. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Good night. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
And that was Ian Joy from BeIN Sports, guys. That was probably, honestly, one of our best interviews. He's so knowledgeable. It's amazing. We bounced around Germany. We bounced around Italy. We touched on England. We spent a lot of time in England. We touched on the Champions League. We touched on MLS. We touched on injuries. We touched on coaching, international.
La Liga. Did you say La Liga?
Sorry. Amazing.
We touched on everything. Yeah, Champions League, like you said. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's nice. It's nice to discuss. A discussion about everything. Even Serbo got a question as well. It's nice to have football. Football fans talking about football whilst. People can, everyone can put their opinion in, and nobody's wrong. It's just people's opinion, and hopefully we can be as knowledgeable as we can, and people can be entertained and have fun with it.
Agreed. It was kind of interesting. He's the first guest that actually turned a question around on us on that Champions League.
That's true. That's the first time we've been put on the spot. But in fairness, we know that at some point all three of us are going to be a panel on the show. So when that does happen, we need to be prepared. So that there it was right there.
Yeah, Rob, I'm going to just run it by you because I think we should get an answer out of you for the record. Ben had asked Ian who he thought would win the Champions League this year, and Ian started to think about it, and he said, well, I want to hear what you guys have to say first. So,
yeah, I think that's when I came in.
Okay.
And so, about Champions League.
Yep. So,
winners.
So, gun to your head, who do you pick to win the Champions League?
If I had to choose just one, or can I... over.
Just one.
If someone put a gun into my head, I would say Barcelona.
Barcelona. Okay,
In all truth.
so we actually all three of us have three different answers because Ben went Bayern Munich, I went with Chelsea, and I talked myself out of Barcelona to go with Chelsea. So, and you went with Barca. So that just goes to show you how close this year's Champions League is going to be. No doubt about it. I think it's going to be a fantastic run up at the end here. So
yeah, I wouldn't be, in all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if the semifinalists are Chelsea, Bayern, Real Madrid, and Barcelona.
Yeah, no, I
think that's one.
And also, Rob, just to catch you up, I think you should know that Ben said that you would say that Valencia and Atletico Madrid would tie this weekend 1-1.
That is.
You can change it if you want, Rob. I put it there, and then you
it
can have build it either way.
It seems like a hard match in general, but I can agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I think it probably could happen.
So all we've got left tonight, obviously, Ben, let's hit the Blackburn banter. I know we've actually talked a lot of Blackburn tonight on the show overall, but any other tidbits that you want to give us for this week's Blackburn banter?
I'm gonna cover the game, the result from this weekend. Like I said, I managed to find a stream for this one. It wasn't me listening to the Rovers player in the commentary. That's what happens when you don't support a big team, a quote unquote big team. You have to find any means necessary to get your supporting fixed. But yeah, Blackburn, Watford. Watford were third before the game, so we knew it was going to be a tough game, and we was actually 2-0 down within 39 minutes. Even though the first goal, I believe, was close to being offside. I think it was probably offside, but you can't really blame the linesman, really. But yeah, it was 2-0 down, and I think the Blackburn team from last year definitely would have lost that game. But the second half, we came out and we scored 2 goals. That's why Bob's Ryan Tunnicliffe got the equaliser for Blackburn. Rudy Gestead with the other goal. And we hit the crossbar and we had a goal disallowed, and we really, really rattled one of the best teams in the Championship. And I'm just impressed the heads didn't go down. I mean, at the beginning of the game, if I was offered a draw, it would have been close. But obviously, when you're 2-0 down against one of the best teams in the division, you snap the hands off. So yeah, I'm pleased. We've got the players coming back. Jordan Rhodes is looking good. He's scoring goals. Rudy Gestead scoring goals. We've got arguably the best striker in the Championship. We've got the highest goal scorer of 2014 in the Championship. We've got one of the best midfields. If we can sort the defence out, then we're going to give it a real good go this year. And we're playing tomorrow night, actually. We're playing Rotherham away, which is a so-called easy game. And we need to be winning these games, really, because, excuses don't make points. And, we need to make the playoffs. We need to make something happen and put a smile on my face because I'm fed up of being depressed all the time.
So, let's move on. I'm kind of getting sidetracked, distracted here. Sorry, Ben. Let's move on to the ManCity corner, and then we'll wrap it up for tonight. As we've been on for almost 3 hours now, Ben. Huh?
Yeah, it has been. We do like to talk our football here, so
yeah. So that's true. And obviously tonight's ManCity corner, simple. Big matchup coming up this week with Roma in the Champions League. Manchester City coming off that loss to I believe it's to Bayern Munich, yep. and then Roma obviously winning their match in the driver's seat. But this match is going to be played at the Etihad, I believe.
Yep. Yes, it is.
Rob, I'll tell you what. Let's go with you first because we gave you most of the night off. Let's get your opening thoughts on this match. What are you looking for? What are you interested in?
I think I'm interested of what Manchester City will do, depending of coming back from the result from Hull City, how they were able to react to obviously a draw. Well, I think the player I'm going to be expecting would be Frank Lampard. Mm-hmm. He's had a great week, especially in the match against Chelsea, the one against Sheffield, and obviously the one against Hull, where he scored in all 3 matches. So I feel like he could play a key factor in the match tomorrow against Roma. Okay. And I want to say one thing about Roma. I think I'm going to I want to see what Juani Turbe does, especially on the wing. He's fast, creative, and I think it's probably going to give a tough time to the City defense when he's being marked by Kompany, Zabaleta, or Mangala for that matter. So it should be interesting to see what he can do.
Ben, how about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this for me is a massive game. I must admit, I tend to be playing lots and lots of poker in the evening, so I don't get to see many of the Champions League games. But I'm gonna take some time off, and I'm gonna definitely watch this game. This for me, I don't know what it was like at the beginning. I didn't particularly like Man City, but I'm growing more and more fond of them. So I'm definitely going to be watching this game, and I think it's going to be a really, really close game. I must admit, Roma, they've started off with a bang this season. Winning all 5 of their games, and thrashing CSKA as well. Really, for me, putting a mark on the group, and that puts the pressure on Man City. They know that. And I'm sure Roma know that as well. I think unfortunately for Man City, conceding the last minute winner, to Bayern Munich in the opening match, has put the pressure on. And as Bob said, Jovetic back in the City squad. They come back from an injury, hamstring injury. But Fernando and Nasri are out. But I've heard a little bit on the grapevine. I can't remember where it's come from. Rumours here and there that people are saying that Roma are going to go there and go and get a draw. And in fairness, on form, that's not that massively out of the ordinary. But I do think that, in my honest opinion, I think Man City have got something to prove, and I really do think they're going to really go out. And I think Pellegrini will as well. And I think they're going to set out to win this game, and I really do think they will. I think it's going to be a really, really tight game, and you got to remember they did the exact same thing last year. They lost their first game, and then they come back and they get out of the group, and I expect them to do it again. But I think it's going to be super tight. I do only think there'll be one goal in it, but I just think the crowd and the belief that's been built up at Man City will be enough, and there's a real bunch of world class players there. So I've got City to squeeze it 2-1.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think City will squeeze this one out. Far be it from me to pick against Roma, but just looking at the players missing in this match, obviously we were talking earlier about the tweeting of Samir Nasri from the hospital bed there. He's obviously out for this match, and they'll also be missing Nastasic from this match for Man City. But the list of injuries for Roma that's going to be missing this match is long and considerable. They're going to be definitely without Kevin Strootman, of course, who's still recovering from his ACL reconstruction from last season. Daniele De Rossi is going to be missing this one. David Astori, Balzaretti, these are all 4 players that are going to be out of this match. Wani Turbe and Leandro Castan are doubtful currently for this match. So there's some big losses coming up here in this particular match. The bookies, Ben, have this one as a 1-1 draw between Man City and Roma. I think this is probably going to be more like a 2-1 Man City victory. I think it's going to be difficult to overcome all the injuries. Obviously, playing on the road at the Etihad is going to be difficult. Roma is a very, very tough side to break down, so they certainly do have that going for them. But you've just got to think that they're going to have such a tough time playing this one on the road with all the injuries that it's not going to. It's not going to fare well for them. So that would be my prediction for this one as well. Even though I didn't write that one down, so we'll just kind of live with that one and let that go. So any closing thoughts, gentlemen, on tonight? Rob, I'm going to start with you. I know you jumped in a little late. Any closing thoughts about this whole show tonight?
I think I also actually do have something to tell you.
Definitely.
You said you wanted to know the score from Olympia against Guarani.
Guarani, and I didn't look it up, and I wanted to see if we could have Ralph Hanna come on maybe next week to talk about it.
Do you happen to know the score?
I don't. I didn't get to just look it up before we came on the air.
2-1 Guarani won.
Oh, really? Okay.
2-1 to Guarani.
Okay, so we'll probably effort Ralph Hanna this week to see if he'll come on and chat about maybe recapping that game for us.
All right.
I think that would definitely be worth it. So, Ben, any closing thoughts from you?
Yeah, I did want to just mention something quickly that just came to me actually whilst we was doing the show. I know we had if the show was a bit shorter, we was going to have a discussion about penalty shootouts as the way to decide matches, and if not, there was a better way. And I don't want to go into too much detail because we're already we're over the 3 hour mark. But for some reason, something came to me like rather than penalties, I'd like to see like how they do it in hockey. I just think that'd be quite interesting to give a player the ball on the halfway line and set the keeper up and just see how that would go. I just think that would be just a bit more fun, but. Yeah, not anything else apart from that. No.
The MLS toyed around with that once upon a time, and they had that for a couple of years. I honestly didn't enjoy it. And this was something. I guess before we close this show out, I guess we'll chit chat about this for a minute because this match happened. I believe it was Monday, if I remember correctly, or was it Tuesday?
I think it was Tuesday. Yeah,
Tuesday, pretty sure.
It was Tuesday because on Wednesday, Ray Hudson and Charlie Stilitano were doing the football show, which is the morning show on XM Radio, and I was up at 7 a.m. driving to work, and this is exactly what they were talking about, and I had to jump in and just talk to them. I can't stand the shootout. I can't stand the penalties. I can't stand all of that to decide a competition. For me personally, guys, and this is the solution I offered them, is what they should do. Currently, we get a 90-minute match. We get 30 minutes of extra time, okay? And then at the end of 30 minutes, we go to penalties. Instead of going to penalties, what they should do is give each side one more substitution and play another 30 minutes of extra time. And what they do is they continue to add a substitute and add 30 minutes of extra time until you have a winner. So this way, I think the game should be decided on the field. That's always been my personal preference to it. To me, you're taking a team sport, and you're deciding it with two individuals.
I guess. Do you mind if I say something?
Yeah. No. Please.
I think also. Penalty shootouts have been known to give, I guess, suspense in a way.
True.
And I think that's what sports should be able to do, to create suspense. You know how there's overtime in football, basketball, shootouts in hockey. So I think it creates suspense to have that one thing settle everything.
Yeah. No, I get it. It just, to me, it's not about the suspense. It's about it's determining who's the best team on the pitch. That for me, that's what it is.
That's what I was going to say. If you're taking the whole skill element on side, then it's almost just as good to have an independent official sat on the sideline, and after extra time's finished, they go up to him and say, "Well, okay, who do you think was the better team?" Because but then like Rob's saying, on top of the suspense, it gives smaller teams a real shot, because if they get to say you've got like a third division team, or a real small team, or Blackburn go to Man United, or City or Chelsea or something like that, and you take them to 90 minutes, and then you go, well, we get through extra time, we can flip a coin, whereas you go back and in a replay, chances are you beat. So I can understand why they do it, I really can, but it must be, it's a devastating way to lose. It really is a devastating way to lose. I mean, especially for finals of tournaments. I'm with you there. That for me, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think any final ever should be finished by penalties. I just don't think it should be done. I think, I know it's brutal in semi-finals and brutal at any stage, but for me, a final, an actual trophy decision decided upon penalties, for me, that I would much rather do what Joe said if it was in a final. I just don't see there needs to be a different way of settling finals, even if they say, well, okay, it's the final, so obviously the cup's done, we come back in a week and we do it again.
I think I wonder how that was the feeling for Joe some 20 odd years ago in California.
Yeah, that did suck. I'm not going to lie to you. And in fact, that was my opening statement to Ray Hudson and Charlie Stilitano, was that I still feel the pain with the image of Roberto Baggio standing over that ball and shooting it over the crossbar in Los Angeles. And Ray says, "Don't you need a little bit of heartache?" And I said, "No, Ray, I don't." So and I'd like to point out in the chat that Sir Bob agrees with me. So now, I guess, Ben, does that mean I'm divorced from you, and and Sir Bob and I need to get a room? I don't know if that's
Yeah, I think Sir Bob's just proposed to Joe in the chat. Joe's just said that he's already married and he's not prepared to take a divorce. I think we all agree with the fact that it's not a skillful way to end the game. But I think we all agree with Rob in the fact that it brings suspense and it shortens the gap in skill. And sometimes to teams, that's what they need. Like I touched upon before, smaller teams. I'm not saying they should be aiming for that, but when teams go down to 10 men and it's near the 90th minute, most of them are looking just to get to penalties,
right?
And it gives them that shot. But like I said, I think that they should maybe work upon something else. But I definitely think 100% that they should pull some kind of idea for finals, where there is no final decided on penalties and a replay if it's the last final game of a tournament. Why should it matter if they come back in a week, or if they do it at the end of the season when the players have got no game afterwards?
I agree.
I just want one more question,
please,
regarding to the subject. Do you think that penalty shootouts are based on luck or skill?
Shootouts?
Yeah, penalty shootouts.
Ben, you want to go first?
Go on, Joe.
All right, I'll go first. Okay, penalty shootouts are both luck and skill. Skill of the shooter.
I guess you could say penalties as well in general.
Or penalties in general. Skill of the shooter, luck of the goalie.
Okay.
Because in the end, and Ben, this will lead this right into you. 99% of the time, the goaltender's making a guess. They're not knowledgeable. It's not something like that. The shooter has enough skill.
Not quick enough.
Well, the shooter has enough skill not to telegraph that. This is the one thing, depending on what level you're playing at, and I used to do this playing goal. I used to save tons of penalties, and it's because the shooters don't know how to disguise what they're doing. But that's at my level. At your level, at the level that we're talking about, at the Champions League, at the Premiership, in Serie A, those guys know how to disguise where they're taking that ball, even through their last step, and so for me, it is skill from the shooter, especially to be able to disguise the ability to shoot where they're going with the ball. But it's complete luck on the goalie because you can even guess right and still miss. But it's luck of the goalie. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, playing in goal and facing a few penalties, like sometimes you just know which way they're going, and it's just how good the penalty is. Obviously, if you're playing in 11-side goals, sometimes that still doesn't matter. I mean, even if you know they're going the right way, if they put it in the corner, you can't from the centre spot. There's no way you can get there. You can't close an angle from the centre spot from 6 yards. So I would agree with Joe. It's skill and it is luck. But I also think it's a mental game. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure in football, but I think when everyone's stopped and even the team's eyes and the crowd's eyes are on one particular player and there's no pressure on the goalkeeper, it becomes a mental game as well. So then is it mental skill? Is it mental toughness? I think it is. So I think there's a bit more skill to penalties than people give credit for, because obviously, like you said, the players have to control their own nerves, and they have to have the ability in the first place, the confidence to take it, and then the skill to follow through. So although there is a bit of skill, obviously there's nowhere near as much skill as what a football match would have. But it's still, penalties I find is a way, a part of football that everyone loves when you're a neutral and everybody hates when you're involved.
I agree. So I'm going to hit the closing music, boys. I think we've covered quite a bit for tonight. So let's cue this up, and then get to the rest of what we wanna say. So coming up next week on Low Limit Football, obviously we'll do our league coverage again. We will talk about the MLS as they head towards the playoffs, although we did cover that quite a bit in depth tonight. We're gonna probably dig a little deeper into the teams moving forward. So Ben, you're gonna have homework to do. We are going to talk about Champions League and Europa, recapping those. We'll have our Blackburn banner and ManCity corner, and I'm sure we will effort a guest. There have been 2 or 3 on mind, especially Ralph Hanna maybe coming back to recap the Olimpia Guarini match. So Rob, any final thoughts you want to mention?
Yeah, I was just about to mention that, how we can effort to make more guests on the show, and of course a good week of football during the weekend and the Champions League during the midweek.
Absolutely, wall to wall this week. Ben, any final thoughts?
Ian Joy secretly loves, well, not even secretly, publicly loves Blackburn Rovers, so that's made my week.
So for episode 44 of Low Limit Football, I am Joe Usello.
And I'm Ben the Machine.
And I'm Roberto Rojas.
Thank you for joining us, and good night.
Thanks for listening.